Good afternoon, everyone. We're beginning our ELHS School Building Committee meeting. This is Monday, July 18th. It's just around 2:34. And I do know we have some people online, so why don't we start there introducing our folks from the design team who are online. And Mr. Mackey, do we have other folks possibly from
We have,
the building committee?
So far, they're just jumping in now. Eric Banksness,
Okay.
Jeanette Corsi, and Mary McNally.
All right, great. Getting close to 4.
That gives us a
Good
good
morning.
Okay, here we go then. Where'd they go?
Good.
Can you bring them in? It's crucial. We're in.
Mary's on Zoom, so it's a quorum.
Well, I need 8. I have 14 on the.
We can just keep moving on.
Yeah, we will.
We can do any votes later, right?
Yeah, he's coming in.
Oh.
All right, why don't we introduce our folks on screen, and then do you think, Ellen, it makes sense to introduce everybody here? I don't know, does everybody know it?
That would be great.
Okay, well, why don't we start then? We'll start with us.
Perfect.
All right, so welcome everyone. I'm Gordon Smith, the Superintendent of Schools. We're gonna move around the table. This is the School Building Committee. We'll start with Mr. Thompson.
Gregory Thompson, School Committee Chair.
Elizabeth Marcy Boucher, School Committee.
Heather Brown, Director of Curriculum.
Steve Lonergan, Finance Director. Ryan Quimby, IT Director.
Helen Fantini, Project Manager, SMMA. Victoria Clifford with Skanska.
Ben Murphy with Skanska, the owner's project manager.
Dory Brooks with Jones Whitson Architects.
Christian Whitsitt, also with Jones Whitsitt Architects.
And we have guests online. We may have them introduce themselves.
Go ahead. Phil, why don't you go first?
Phil Poinelli, SMMA Educational Planner.
Okay. Brian.
I am Brian Black, Architect, SMMA.
See Eric.
I got a player.
Oh, I didn't pull them in, sorry.
Let's go.
He's not a panelist.
And Jill.
And Jill as well.
Can get
Yeah.
pulled in too.
And Mary McNally.
John
Oh,
Benziger
there
is
she
from
is.
Skanska.
Yeah.
Here's Mary.
We have everybody in.
Everybody's in.
There we go.
Well, welcome everyone. See, welcome Mary.
Oh,
Brought you in. So, all right, we do have a number of people on vacation, but we're going to continue on. So we have important information to get out. What we'll probably do is take the agenda out of order. Mr. Crucial's coming a few minutes late. So I think we'll go to agenda item number 2, which is an update from Skanska. Sure. You need slides, Ben?
Yeah, if we could just show that first schedule graphic.
You want to do this first or no?
Sure, you can start there. So ultimately, we just wanted to provide an update today, guys, of where we're at with the preliminary design program and the production of that submittal, which we have targeted for August 30th. So it's fast approaching. So I just wanted to show you guys what we've been working on over the last month or so. So just to remind you again, the main objectives of this Module 3 preliminary design program, or Module 3 is the feasibility study in its entirety. So Module 3A, as we call it, 3.1, sorry, is the preliminary design program. And in this program, we are aiming to document the town's educational program, generate an initial space summary, which will be, the design team will be showing you folks their progression on that later on in the presentation. We are aiming towards documenting the building and the site's existing conditions, the existing building and site that is, and establish design parameters for the project. And also, as part of this process, we're developing and evaluating alternatives, the required alternatives, which we'll be getting into all the information in the design team's presentation. But with the schedule here, the last one I showed you was just kind of all blocked out, the really summarized version. So we did break out this module 3.1 just to show some of the critical activities that are taking place within this phase. And so if you take a look right at the top there where it says the educational programming, so we really started the educational programming piece of the equation, you know, right at the onset, as soon as the district was invited to conduct a feasibility study. And so since then, the design team has held 3 educational visioning sessions. So those have been completed, and the data collection, the information collection from those meetings has been documented as well. And then from there, you can see the development of the space summary and the review of the space summary with the Superintendent Smith and Principal Frank Page. That has taken place as well. So once again, the design team does have the initial space summary to show you folks today and kind of explain what that is and why it is important for our project. And then from there, you can see the drafting of the educational plan. So this is just a pocket we've put in there for creating the educational plan that will be incorporated into the PDP submission in August. And you can see just another thing I alluded to, the existing conditions survey is well underway. And then we've also started to develop the preliminary options, which will be showing you some of the progression on that later on as well. So that's about where we're at. You can see the highlighted portion here is the SBC meeting today. Soon we'll be starting the cost estimating for these initial preliminary design program options. So that's just part of that process as well. And then we have on here just the SBC meeting for the final approval of the preliminary design program, which we had scheduled for August 22nd, which is a Monday. We are going to get to it later in the presentation today, but we would like to move that date, the SBC date, to further in that week, so long as everybody is available. And Helen and her team will get to why we're asking for that in a bit. But and then ultimately, just we're aiming towards this August 30th submission date to MSBA. So that said, we're hoping to have everything in place for you the week before so that we can show you in the SBC meeting kind of the components of that report and what's going into the state. So that's about where we're at with the schedule. And then I guess we can go into the design portion now.
So moving to agenda item 3, get our update from Jones Whitsett and SMMA.
So we want to start by talking a little bit about the results of the visioning and programming process. And we've spoken about that both of the last meetings. Not everyone's participated in the visioning, so I want to be sure that everybody on the committee has an opportunity. If you haven't had a copy, I'll pass these around. But this is a lengthy final document that I encourage you to read at some point in time. It's helpful because the visioning process informs the educational plan. As does a history of the school, its current curriculum, its educational goals, district goals. But listening to input is part of what shapes the education plan. It also helps to shape our approach to the design work. The other document that I've already, I believe, placed in front of you is this ELHS design themes document. And both of these are important summary documents that, again, talk a lot about the difference between just assembling a series of spaces and having an intent behind the design of those spaces and how they connect what they're trying to do as a whole. So these documents help us to kind of narrow down to what are the driving themes that help us shape the building. So it's important that you all review that, I think, so that as we talk about the design options, as we review different options and you feel people sort of lean one way or the other, it's partly because of the educational vision and plan. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of these takeaways today. And we're going to cover the takeaways from these workshops fairly quickly in order to get to other things. So time spent later is valuable time, really. So we did complete the third visioning session led by New Vista Design. I'd say as a whole, we had stronger input on the community use of the project than I'd say the educational use in the visioning session. We just did not have a lot of teachers present because of the time of year. But the programming sessions had they were all about the teachers. So the two together balance very well. So we just led that process, talked about strengths and weaknesses of the school. We heard from people both in person and online. We reviewed design patterns and precedents. Broke in our last session into focus groups to come up with some ideas specifically, and then kind of again further narrowed the key critical design themes of the project. I'd say on the community priorities, the big outcomes, and I'd say they were consistent all along. And you see on the right hand in this this image, the next one there, This is just one of the diagrams created by one of the groups. But I grabbed this to reflect the conversation around community priorities, because the community priorities conversations were really very consistent throughout. There was an expression of a desire for a school that the whole community can be proud of, a desire that the facility be all age and accessible, that it be welcoming to seniors, but also welcoming to families, that it incorporate recreational space for residents to enjoy, that there be after hours meeting space and useful spaces within the school, and that there be an attitude of a sustainable site in school. So those are the 5 biggest takeaways. And you see in the diagram that kind of notion of how these things kind of work together, but that the space also be welcoming and safe, secure. So not a lot of surprise there. We did hear consistently about the desire for the pool, consistently for improvements of recreational fields. So all these things kind of matched all the way through. In the educational principles coming out of the visioning session, the 6 key takeaways were the desire for a student-centric design. And this, I'd say, what we heard consistently and saw in the programming conversations as well, is a frustration that a building built in 1950 was hard to adapt to the needs of students today. And that you have young teenagers, young adults who are facing different challenges, who have other types of distractions, and need a school that actually kind of helps to support and keep their focus. So it's a more student-centric design, and we can talk more about that throughout the process. More flexibility for teaching, both classrooms that are more flexible, but opportunities for teaching to occur in different types of spaces in different types of ways. So it's not all sitting, rote learning, memorization, that you need both the technology and the capacity within spaces with furniture and space to support different types of learning experiences. STEAM and STEM consistently kind of would rise up and kind of move around in our list of ideas that people cared a lot about. What I heard the most about was a sense of a desire to integrate engineering and arts into the curriculum. So rather than say the school becoming a focused STEAM school, and that's the priority, more it was the idea of integration, I think, of hands-on learning, arts, mathematics, sciences, sort of that kind of contemporary project-based learning that reflected a variety of disciplines. So we heard that quite consistently. Also, and this came through strongly, is collaboration and connections, that there needed to be more opportunities for students to work together on their own, to develop that independence, to work with each other, to learn the communication skills of working with each other, and to make connections with people different than themselves, especially coming out of COVID, where students had become somewhat myopically focused, kind of on technology to, again, learn how to interact with each other. And we heard echoed their desire for the school as a whole to be more collaborative, for teachers to be able to collaborate, and that there was an absence of space and time to support collaboration. So that was an interesting theme. And in some ways, I think just Gordon and I have talked about some of these issues, that they're ripple effects. It's not just a spatial decision making that has to occur, but also looking down the road, professional development opportunities. And it was consistent with the things the district was already doing, but leads to other conversations. And then outdoor connections was consistent from the very beginning of the project. In the visioning and programming, we were really surprised to hear such a strong statement about that. Again, it might have been that COVID reintroduced that as a desire and a comfort level of going outside, but people saw the value of that. And then again, school is community resource. On the right, you see one of many group sketches looking at the idea of a classroom neighborhood that is focusing on different types of learning, different types of spaces in conjunction with each other. And then a connection to the outdoors, project-based learning, just different ways of reflecting that sort of interdisciplinary, multimodal teaching, kind of how I think of it. And then here in design themes, this reflects really what I'd say are as designers, key takeaways from both the vision, but even more so the programming interviews. So in the interviews, we asked teachers about their needs, and specifically within every department, how departments work, what students need, what's challenging, what's working. And a lot of the answers end up in this space summary that we're going to talk about. And it's really important that we know exactly how much space is needed for each type of activity in the building. But it's also important that we understand, again, what matters, you know? So extracting from these spatial decisions are these key drivers that we want to keep coming back to as a design team and talking about how is this design supporting collaboration? How is it supporting students' motivation to learn? How is it supporting inclusion? We heard a lot about inclusion from the teachers and the need to continue to push for teaching models that are inclusive, classrooms that are inclusive, a school that isn't focusing only on the dominant student, but also on students who may feel marginalized, and being sure that they feel supported. And then providing opportunities for learning everywhere. This was a pretty consistent theme throughout. And then community connections. So that's us winnowing it down to 5 key bullet points that we want to judge our work by and that we'll keep returning to as drivers of design. And now what we're going to do today is talk a little bit more about this space summary, which is the less exciting topic, but ultimately the most critical here in our process. And again, we don't just arrange boxes, but we have to start with this as a way of helping you to understand this goal. And a microscope helps to read this, but this is trying to reflect some of what you see here. And we want to talk a little bit about these outcomes from the process. So the proposed program for the school, this first screen is focusing on the educational spaces. Oh, sorry, here we go, online, looking up. Okay, so in terms of the proposed program, we developed a space summary. It's not a locked document. We'll continue to move back and forth within it. We'll make revisions. We've already met with Frank and Gordon and reviewed it, and it will continue to evolve. And ultimately, as a committee, your job is to sort of sign off on this submittal as a part of the process, saying this is how big the building we want is. So it's an important thing to understand what's involved in it. And I know that you're not going to all get in on every single room, but to keep the highest priority here, this is calling for 25 core academic classrooms. Now, 25 doesn't reflect all the classrooms because that is English, math, social studies. It doesn't include the science labs, which are a separate group of subjects areas. It includes languages. You also see up there 4 business classrooms and 2 health classrooms. So all of those 25 above and the 6 below are all what you think of as a traditional 850 square foot classroom. On average, those are larger than your current classrooms. Your current classrooms are varied in size. There are probably a few that are more than that, but most are under that.
How many do we have?
You have
37.
30. The number currently reflects, it's not a one-to-one relationship.
It's very confusing.
Because you have science classrooms and science labs.
Right.
So those classrooms are counted in. You have.
So we have 39 collectively then, here,
Right, so exactly, it
So
comes
how
out
many
to
do
be
we have
fairly close.
today,
He's giving you the count.
with science labs.
With 34, including the green.
Can I ask why some are below the line and some are above?
Yes, I'll explain that in just a second.
More classrooms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is giving you more as you break out the science labs, correct?
So no, it's pretty similar ultimately. So we have 8 what it matches is the faculty number ultimately is kind of
That's
what we
really-
found. That's what really
Yeah, that's what I'm
ultimately
trying to
matters. We went through this and kind of looked at it. Because remember, you also have up here special education classrooms. So by the time you add them all up, you're very much where you are today. So 25 core academic classrooms, 4 business classrooms, 2 health classrooms, standard classrooms. And then you have 8 science labs. That covers all of the sciences, chem, bio, forensics, and physics, anatomy. So what we do is, Phil is on the phone. Phil has done a fabulous job taking the schedule, taking the enrollment numbers and crunching that to be sure that these can kind of all work together within these rooms. What's different than what you currently have is that you have both science prep and planning areas. The 2,500 square feet of teacher planning area, that can be broken down in different ways, but that provides for that collaboration space that doesn't currently exist effectively in the school. The school has one greenhouse. We've committed 600 square feet of greenhouse area to be figured out how it's organized. And then one ELL room, so a half-size classroom for English language learning. The SPED group rooms, there are 4 500 square foot, what we call resource rooms. Those would be dispersed throughout the educational wing. That each ideally, that's where you would have resources as well as staff who can pull students for group work and support work, as well as you have small commitments of space. I think it's roughly 150 square feet that are spread throughout, so that there's a variety of pull-out spaces near classrooms for intervention work.
Do they all have windows per se?
Not yet. So it depends.
Code-wise or
Not necessarily.
standard building practices?
We obviously love windows,
Yeah.
but sometimes a small group room might be a room between two classrooms that's opening onto the hallway. So these spaces all vary. If it's a staffed room, if somebody's expected to be there 8 hours a day, it almost absolutely always has an outside window because it's it's not a code requirement, but it's a sort of human decency requirement.
Good, okay.
If it's an interior room, let's say it's one of these breakout spaces, even if it had windows that brought light in from the hallway.
Right, exactly.
On either side, or both sides, I was noticing that's how Msba middle high school is designed. So you have a lot of interior rooms, but it's interesting, they have windows. The windows span basically, I would say like stomach high. However, it's blocked, so it's letting the light in, but you can't see in until you get to the very top. So the
Sort of distraction proof.
right, so it's distraction proof,
Yeah.
which I thought that was an interesting
Yeah.
concept.
I never understood why schools have the shades go from the top down. They should have the shades go from the bottom up
Yeah.
so the teacher can see, and the kids aren't like, it's
Right,
recess outside,
Right. Yeah.
It's a good idea.
The space summary includes, it matches what you have in terms of art, band, chorus, includes an ensemble room and 3 practice rooms.
And those are actually, the band room is larger, right?
Yes, band and chorus are both larger than you currently have. The vocational studios, again, that's where the classroom count gets confusing because some of what you have isn't necessarily called a studio currently, but we identify, and partly I'll talk about how this relates to the MSBA and what their expectations are. Some of these spaces that you're seeing, we're encouraged to find as a part of, again, changing educational paradigm. So the MSBA supports 5 vocational studios for a high school of this size. So we've identified those as engineering, graphic design, culinary arts, pre-K childcare lab, and TV production, video production.
So most of these spaces right now, we're running those courses now, but they're not designed for those type of activities. So if you've gone to our culinary arts room, we've over the years built that up into a program that the students love. But it's a standard classroom basically that we've continued to find ways to enhance and then therefore taken our electrical system to its utmost capacity.
Right, exactly.
Some cases just shut down wings by accident.
Yeah.
We haven't done that in a while, which is always good. But this would give us the opportunity to really build programs and have them we can't go the direction of, say, becoming a fully, was it Chapter 74?
Yeah.
School, because that's what our Lower Pioneer Valley Educational Collaborative does for us. However, we can keep things that are traditionally well enrolled and students are enjoying and want to continue to enjoy. And so that's the early childhood, that's the culinary arts, that's recently it's been our tech and engineering. If you were to, you have toured most of you the school, they're in standard classrooms.
Right.
With limited electrical and so forth.
Right, so these vocational
And in some
studios-
cases, no windows.
These vocational studios are more generous, and the largest is the engineering. There's currently a robotics room separated here, so we're pulling that in. So it's a 2,000 square foot studio, quite a bit larger to allow for the flexibility of multi-purpose use.
Our current robotics room has no windows. It's really designed as like a storage library type storage for books. It's got
Right.
shelving and so forth.
So yes, as Gordon's saying, all those will have the infrastructure to support them. We'll talk about TV production a little bit more because that's the only one that doesn't exist as a part of the high school. Currently it exists as a part of LCAT as a kind of an elective opportunity for a student sort of work study type opportunity. But one of the proposals here is because there are 5 opportunities for studios is to actually have that be part of the academic program, which in the end may not change the square footage for you because you have those, but it incorporates it as a part of the allowable reimbursement. And it allowed, but only if the district's intending to
Right.
hire and support it and make it an elective.
So one of the things we're looking at doing with the help of Mr. Mackey, who is writing today, thank you, Mr. Mackey, in the educational plan is looking at how we prepare and expose students to TV programming at the middle level and how can we continue that at the high school level, and it would become another elective. In addition to some of the things, the great things Mr. Mackey's already doing, we can continue internships and so forth, but develop some courses where, 4 years, 5 years, as we bring this high school online, you have teachers in place there providing that, and now you go basically 6 through 12 with programming. And we have right now, what's the most recent thing we're doing? Podcasts?
Podcast, yeah.
Podcast.
Yeah. Which, that's something that was just students really driving their interest, some of the interns, which is really cool.
So the light blue blocks represent the PE program. The very large block there on the program is the 12,000 square foot gymnasium. So it's a 3-court gymnasium. The current gymnasium is 8,500. So a larger gymnasium is again, that's within what the MSBA would expect to see for a high school of this size and would be eligible for reimbursement from the MSBA. That is, all of these areas can be kind of broken up in different ways. The MSBA would also expect to see 3,000 square feet for alternative PE, and here the schools asked for both a weight room and exercise room. So there's that commitment as well. And then you have the locker rooms. It's another big block.
Does that count in the math, the weight room and the exercise room in terms of the square footage allowed?
Yes, so they don't necessarily say you must have a weight room. They say here's 3,000 square feet,
Okay.
that we know that you're going to want to use in certain ways.
Do you know the
And-
size of the current small gym?
Current small gym is 4,000.
4,000, so smaller,
Yeah,
3/4 of that.
right. So that's where one of our pinch points here is. But going through it with the faculty, the gymnasium being able to serve the idea is that there might be a divide that allows you to break the gymnasium into a small gym and a large gym, but otherwise have it open as a single gym. So you'd have 3 teaching spaces there, as well as that alternative space being a 4th teaching space. So seems to work out.
And right now, they break it into 3, and whoever gets the small gym kind of feeling as though they've lost in that challenge.
But they'll have a smaller gym though in this model.
Yeah, more and less likely a gym,
Be more of an alternative.
more of a dance
Could-
studio
Yes,
type.
Could be
studio
exercise or
sorts, yeah.
yoga or some of the things that they actually do
Sure.
in their programming. Now they would have a room or fitness. I mean, they have a weight room now, but, and they do use it in the PE program, but it's not ideal, to say the least.
Are we gonna talk about existing parts of this building at a future point?
Yes.
Okay,
Well, yeah,
including gymnasium?
yeah, because we have looked at the structural concerns
Okay.
about the gym,
Okay.
yeah. So additional parts of that program are the offices for staff. What the district needed that was not accommodated within the MSBA's expectations is an extra trainer's office and extra storage for athletics, because there's a certain amount of storage, but Frank was very concerned it wouldn't be enough given,
Was it 300? It was,
yeah, there are two allotments of 300, and we added an additional 500. I think it was 300, 500, and
Yeah, it's
now,
300
so now we have
storage containers.
1,300,
Yeah.
yeah, so we increased it.
It's an interesting dilemma here. The MSBA doesn't allow it, yet the MIAA requires a trainer. You have,
Right.
you know, that
And
schools
again-
need a trainer.
And the language is, it's important to say the MSBA allows anything you want, they just don't necessarily reimburse it.
Oh, is this the above line, underline thing?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's what we're gonna come to next. Larger media center than you currently have, which is great, because we can use that square footage in a variety of ways. You know, it doesn't have to just be one media center or one room. And then in terms of the auditorium, as you know, 2/3 of the size of the enrollment. So an auditorium typically for 600 is what's estimated, and this auditorium begins at 5,333 square feet. And then add to that the stage of 1,600, storage of 450, 2 dressing rooms for 600 total, and then a lighting booth. And that becomes a program of about 8,183.
So compared to the existing auditorium is much larger at 6,800 square feet. But all of that program together, we're really only about 1,000 square feet larger currently than what the MSBA allows. So currently we're at about 9,200 for auditorium, stage, storage, makeup rooms, lighting.
How many seats now?
That I don't know. That's
More
a
than
good question.
600.
Yeah, I think it's,
Yeah.
I think it's 800 to 900 seats.
How many seats? Just over 800.
800.
So the advantage there of the auditorium approach is that it can be done in, a new auditorium can be more multifunctional. So rather than being designed only for, you know, High School Musical, it can be designed for media. So there are some advantages to that new option. And we'll talk about it. You'll see on the space summary, a discussion point with the speakers has been that they would like a large group instructional space. A large group instructional space is a 2 to 3 classroom size space where multiple classrooms could come together, or you could pull the freshmen together, or you could do an art fair, or it's a flat floored, it's not a sloping floored space where you're kind of, a lot of things can happen inside. It's very flexible. And the question has been, where would we put that in the space summary? So one option that's listed here is the radical idea that instead of having an auditorium, there be a black box theater and a large group instructional space. So you take that commitment and break it into 2 types of spaces, a 4,000 square foot black box and a 2,000 square foot large group instructional space that could be elsewhere. That could serve community meetings, you know, that support the district, or be sort of closer to the academic wing. So that's just an idea that was discussed. So now we have
That's no auditorium.
3 options here.
No auditorium?
So that would be a
No
no
set
auditorium
seats
approach.
anywhere.
I guess that's something where, and I know we're boxed in by the constraints of the MSBA. That's the one thing I do not understand, why they have such a bug in their bonnet about the size of an auditorium. I think an auditorium should be able to fit every single student. I don't think we do it enough. I think full auditorium filled, all the students, you know, sitting there, talking to them, discussing issues, problems, things like that. I think that is so important for community, where you're not just hearing it over, like, you know, so I guess that's why I have such a hard, the pool I get, although I think every community should have one indoor pool. Like if you've got 5 schools, they shouldn't all have an indoor pool. And I know that that isn't your job to fix, and obviously, but I guess that's how I feel. I feel like there should be a place where everyone can come together at once, have discussion. You know, you talk about the community getting for whatever it is, and I know this is besides the point, but that just blows my mind.
So,
It really
and
does.
again, I want to say that MSBA is supporting those things that are high priority from an educational standpoint.
Right.
So
But that
they
is-
don't begrudge, they're not keeping.
No, I know that, but I think getting a community together and discuss, like, I guess I
Yeah.
feel even like just recent stuff, just like get all the kids in there, have a conversation, get them in that auditorium, have the speakers come in, have the learning happen, have them all hear it at once, have them hear the passion from whoever. That just is, it's nothing we can do about it unless we choose to make it fit that many kids, but it just blows my mind that that's one thing we don't consider.
Well, it's because it only happens 4 times a year, so the space.
I was gonna say, it's a utilization piece. That's what's driving it.
Generally, when you, so just to sort of speak to some of that, generally you're gonna target programming like that, and I was one who used to bring in classes as a principal, but you're gonna do that by grade level.
I guess.
So you're gonna do, because it's really challenging if you bring all 800 in to have any kind of interaction. You can do it a little bit better if you have it by grade level, and now you can take whatever you're talking about and make it specific to grade 9.
I suppose.
Or grade 10.
It just boggles
No,
my mind.
you're
You
right.
gotta sit and nickel and dime something that I personally,
Right.
think's like, kind of thing,
Mhm.
Yeah.
And the other thing, something to think about as we were going through the visioning, if you did something with your food services area and your welcoming area, if that's open enough, you could, am I right? If we had the seating, you could bring in seating to, add to it and sit maybe your entire class or 2 classes or whatever you need beyond the auditorium, and then you have another space where you can make a presentation. The idea of having that inviting more than just for food services, I think is important, because you want students to hang out. They do anyway,
Yeah.
after school. And I would say right now, our cafeteria is not the most inviting place, but they do hang out there. If we can
Yeah.
change that.
I would say one of the things that we heard in talking to faculty is a desire for more places for students to present and grow confident in making presentations of various types, creative, formal, academic, goofy. But to have venues that are comfortable for that to happen. And again, to some degree, I think that's why we see the media center as a place where a venue like that might be helpful.
Right.
A large group instructional space has those kind of opportunities to step up and not only have the 1 or 2 kids that are comfortable singing, on a stage that large, present. But yeah, these are all parts of the choices,
Yeah.
And again, we're going to go through many things. There are so many priorities that come into play in making these decisions. And know that you don't have to finalize any decision today. We're still in the investigation phase.
But I think to Gordon's point about the use of the cafeteria space, and
Yeah.
the atrium space, I know a lot of them are multi-level with the large steps that have allowed for seating or for some small stage area, presentation area. I think if we put that all
Built in.
together,
Yeah. You
to
can,
use that space more throughout the day.
I think that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Because it gives you another breakout space.
Yeah.
Roll the tables out, roll them back in.
Because that's typically what happens. I know we put our tables up, well, we don't
What
have
I
to put them up
do
here.
every time I set up for a meeting in here,
Yeah.
roll the tables up, the square, roll them in. Mr. Mackey comes in and changes it all on me.
You notice?
I did notice.
Okay, I'm going to keep going. And
Okay,
I'm sure we'll come back to that topic.
Did you want to say anything about the line?
I am in the very next slide.
Next slide, gotcha. Okay.
You're leaving the painting, Dorian?
That's when I preview it with Gordon. So in the next slide, you see all of the programs, so there's more boxes here. So same number, same educational program, but now we've added in the cafeteria, which is the dark blue boxes. The red little tiny boxes is the admin spaces. Gray is just a lump of storage space at the moment, but we will break it up, I promise. Then those big boxes at the bottom below the line are the community spaces that you've asked for, the pool, the district offices, LCAT, IT. Everything below the gray line that's now got that big ring around it, those are things that are not eligible for reimbursement from the MSBA. Doesn't mean that they might not be, in that some things, again, MSBA's commitment is to education. So the green boxes, those extra classrooms that are business and health, because health is a requirement in the state of Massachusetts,
Graduation.
they will typically say, oh, okay, yeah, that's legit, and it's on the schedule, and you need it, and it fits your utilization. So we anticipate those would be supported, and that that generally happens with the academic and the special education spaces. Special education is reviewed by DESE, and as long as you're showing the requirement for those programs, that's likely to go. And our request is not unreasonable. It's a little bit more than is expected for this size of school, but that's true for every school right now. So no
I'm sorry.
concerns there.
So the 6 classrooms that are on the bottom, those are just above and beyond what you think they would fit, or that's strictly the greenhouses, the ELL
I think the classrooms in the ELL room are
combined?
good,
Within the 6.
and they're likely to make, the 4 boxes to the right are the 3 greenhouses in the ELL room.
Okay.
I think the greenhouses they do often support that, but they're a little bit beyond. They have been talked about as a goal here. Again, the idea isn't that if it's not eligible, we should strike it. It's just an awareness that you're paying for more.
There's
of
a
that.
good
ELL room
opportunity.
is not part of
So that's what we're
the
saying, is that there's a
scenario?
good chance, it's really odd.
So,
But there's a
sorry,
good
you're saying
chance
those
that they
6 will
could.
migrate to the other side of the
Yeah,
line.
that they could go to the other side.
Yeah.
We have to
That's
make
huge.
we have to make an argument for that. And the programming that we do, and the fact that we renovated the greenhouse we currently have.
Yeah.
The fact that in those 6 classrooms, you have health, which is a graduation requirement both for ELPS and the state. And English language learning. I mean, that would be a challenge to see why that wouldn't be accepted.
And again, it's not in those types of spaces, there's they need to understand your individual situation and what your program requires. There's a very big difference between asking for an EL classroom and, asking for, 2,000 square feet of auditorium that they don't.
Right, no, I know that.
In special education, the district feels a need for a conference room to support IEP meetings. And then there's the Willie Ross program, 2 smaller classrooms that are currently here, plus 2 support spaces within there. So that also we're hopeful about, I think are very positive.
I think, sorry.
Yeah, you wanted
explaining to the MSBA the partnership we've had for
Exceptional
close to
program.
40 years
Yeah.
and how we're integrating deaf students into our programming from the Willie Ross School. But if you're going to do that, you need support rooms to support those students. I think we can make a good case that is academically progressive and has been for 40 years or
So
so.
we'll have to think about which one of these we want to fight. And I know
We're fighting.
it's not a fight.
It's not a fight.
but
It's
no,
just, it's
the
putting in the
discussion,
educational
which one we
plan.
want to put the biggest effort into.
Well,
Let me
it's also
rephrase
just
that.
about being aware of what you're communicating to the community in the final project.
Right.
So in the PE spaces, there's a trainer room in the extra storage I mentioned. In office, there was just 3 people who otherwise wouldn't have an office if we didn't provide them. There's a second assistant principal, an SRO office, and an extra psychologist.
Now,
Or were the
I-
extra lavender
ironically-
boxes?
what's that?
The extra lavender boxes underneath?
Lavender, are you on the second sheet?
After Willie Ross.
The training room.
No, I see the blues as training and extra
Where do
storage.
you see a lavender below the line? Above the line?
I'm on the wrong
You're on the room.
slide. Sorry.
It's okay. It's all right. I can't guarantee that it's perfect because these things change almost every hour, so.
Since.
Ah.
Yeah, I apologize. So
Okay.
the one that I sent out got updated
Okay,
as a,
okay.
As of this morning.
yeah. Can I say one thing about?
Sure.
So again, MSB, you have a lot of agencies sort of overlooking this, not overlooking, managing this. You have MSBA, but you also have DESE getting involved, especially around the special education. Now, just this morning, DESE sent out to all school districts and superintendents a survey that we have to fill out regarding if you have a school resource officer, which we do. And if you do have a school resource officer, then they want to know how much money you're budgeting towards social and emotional education and programming. And so, that's something that we'll be filling out within the next week or so. But it's interesting. So my guess would be if DESI's starting to push, and there's a big push, and they've been pushing, obviously, as you know, the support for social and emotional education, and I think we've done a nice job incorporating that. You also want to include your school resource officer in that piece, which it looks like DESI's doing, and that's a good thing. Because you want all of this to be seen as support as opposed to, punishment and disciplinary and so forth. So hopefully that gives us a good argument maybe to pop some of those red boxes over on the other side of the line, or not.
Exactly.
I'll be making a strong
Now,
argument.
as this evolves and whatnot, you never want to have like a half whatever room, I'll edit. But do they limit the size of, say, offices for, a psychologist, or if we had a resource officer? I mean, is there a way of making the room a little larger and having it have walls?
Ultimately, it's all square
like,
footage.
What is the square footage
For the most part,
Okay.
yeah. And again, these are such small amounts of these extra offices that, and again, I think the SRO officer is a very common need, so
Yeah.
I wouldn't worry too much about that. It all pales in comparison to the 3 boxes at the end when it comes to a square foot.
Wow, that's.
And I did realize I missed, we also added a tiny bit to the dining program to allow for a scramble servery, which is just a more flexible eating option for students. It tends to engage students in eating more.
More
So
people
that's,
participate in the lunch program if you go with that design.
If you have it, and they can kind of.
It's more their choice. They have a chance to move around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's what, I don't know about your kids, but my daughter kind of missed was the opposite, because she only had it that freshman year, to be able to go and like do the salad bar.
Yeah.
Kind of have it be like
More than a
you
la
create,
carte.
yeah.
again,
yeah.
student-centered dining,
You feel, yeah.
So on the next page, this is not the process of estimating here. This is a process of helping people to understand why these numbers matter. So we've kind of circled some of the things that are probably things that they're going to ask us questions about that are
On the next slide.
on the next one, the ones that has, right, there you go. So greenhouses we'll probably discuss further. The Willie Ross program, we just need to explain that program. Then there's that question about what to do with the auditorium program. We're looking for feedback from the leadership team on that, because
And feedback.
and from you all, and they'll shuttle too. There's the LCAT studio idea, which we want kind of confirmation that is a direction that you'd like us to go.
To include
To extend
An
the
LCAT
programming
space.
so that it's
as one of the labs or the
a way to bring it into the academic portion,
Yeah.
which
The
might
studios.
Mhm.
might
You know,
be
I-
more reimbursable, but
Yeah.
also still have the community aspect of LCAT.
I think that with the way the future's going, like the social media and how people create their businesses,
Mhm.
drive their businesses, drive their hobbies, drive everything we do, it's all based on, and obviously
Media.
media.
Yeah.
And I think that we could probably very easily figure out a way, and I don't think it's a bad thing to incorporate it, everything from just doing it properly so you don't find yourself in jail up to being really creative and making it move. But it's true. Our marketing classes need to do more with it, so I certainly think that would be an easy thing
I mean,
for
it's an
me to
avenue.
want to
Yeah,
think
if you
is a
think
good avenue for
Marketing and
education.
advertising, that's a
Yeah.
whole
It is.
advertising.
They have entire programs in colleges now for it.
And one other thing that's nice about thinking about the studios distinctly as studios that are differently capable is that gets you out of thinking this teacher owns this room and all the equipment in it, and it becomes more versatile. So if you have a fully outfitted video production studio that yes, one staff person teaches video, but that facility could support marketing, could support history. It doesn't have to be. I used to teach video integration history classes and English language classes. So trying to break them up as resources instead of thinking of them. And that's again where those discussions about why some program, like renovation, is a harder way for us to do that than new might be. So that's where we start thinking in terms of the organization of those spaces to meet those goals. So this was just to give you a sense of some of the spaces that we think we can try and nick away at a little bit by incorporating LCAT and revisiting where LCAT and IT overlap then, because there's still some LCAT that has to be district offices that would still support the town as a whole.
Right.
So we can reduce that square footage.
We had a question, and Ryan and I were talking about this. So if you have IT, which is a town department, and obviously that's needs space, and certainly it would be great to have it in this building. Is there a way with, if we start to bring back not only our intern program, but our student help desk, which, you know, COVID kind of took that away.
Right.
And we put that into the educational plan, would some of that space become eligible?
I think it'll be a little bit more of a struggle. I mean, we incorporated, I believe, 3,000 square feet for IT, not dividing it up yet. Currently, it's 2 classrooms.
That's in here somewhere?
Yes.
It's coming up.
Right. So that's one of these boxes over here on the right is LCAT and IT as a whole, 4,000. 1,000 was LCAT offices, and 3,000 is the IT spaces, which when we met, it includes, there's some storage needs, some office and server need, and then ideally some tech support need that could be, say, co-located at the library or commons, or, you know. So that seems to be needed for sure.
And if we were to incorporate that into student, at least internships, would that be, or do we have to actually have a course?
Well, one of the challenges is when you look at those green boxes, the MSBA is thinking, are those utilized classrooms? So it's how many students are in how much of your classroom commitment. So when you start pulling numbers out for other programs, it doesn't necessarily help because you can
You
kind
only
of
have so many
feel.
students.
You only have so
many
much
hours a day.
space
Okay.
that you
Yeah.
need to. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure that we could, if there was a dedicated program that made sense as an academic program,
Okay.
it certainly
It was
would
just a thought. I mean,
revisit it.
it still, from a community aspect, makes a lot of sense, obviously, to look at where and how you're going to integrate the IT department.
Mhm.
You know, and I know as we get into other slides, we'll be talking about
Sure.
other departments where you might solve community issues as well as academic issues and challenges. And then it truly becomes more of a community building.
And you identified SRO as something that probably next year, everybody's going to be expected to have an SRO office. And they aren't yet.
Yeah.
I think the same is true of IT. Now that every school is one-to-one,
Right.
you're going to need to
We're the
support that.
biggest user of IT.
Yeah, and every school is looking for support.
Yes, by
Now-
far, right?
Now, through your years, have you seen the MSBA kind of sort of change their thoughts and evolve, and they do?
Yeah.
Yeah, real quick, they have like what, 6
Yeah,
months?
but again, the MSBA is trying to support as many districts as
Sure.
they
I don't know if they
can,
move
so
that
it's not,
fast.
they don't move that fast.
I also understand everything we see and everything we say, it all has a cost to us to it, and
Right.
what can we afford and how do we make it? I do, as I sit there saying, I want an auditorium, I get it, I understand.
But as you'll
I'm
see it on the
aware because I
slides.
want it to be the least cost, but the most powerful.
Yes.
Right, and
Yes.
as you're gonna see in other slides, so however that sort of plays out, you still have the pool sitting there, that's a community piece, you
Right.
know, and IT is still a town department. These are things that we, as a community, need to do.
Right.
And so you might as well make this building exceptional in terms of solving both the 9 through 12 needs, but other community needs, and then it becomes really the centerpiece of the town.
It's, I think our bottom line will be the driving factor, though. I don't
Yeah.
think we should be 25, 30% higher than our neighbors. I think that's gonna cause a problem. The number in the end will cause a problem. So I think we should explore a lot of these things, but also not,
See where.
some of these are gonna be high tickets. The pool has to be here.
Right.
The black box option is, if we go with something like that, is there a place for 600 people to collectively meet with 600 folding chairs inside the building?
We haven't designed the building yet, but you have the cafeteria, and if we co-locate part of the media center. in-
Jim?
You know,
Someone.
one would hope.
You could use the gym. We did that with Coda.
and just, put folding chairs out on the gym floor?
Just to get some options, because I
Very
think
scientific such setting and not necessarily a theater type setting. That's true.
that's the other side of it too. I know in one of the sessions that I sat in on, there was a big emphasis on the arts, so I don't want to lose sight of that, because I think as we all come back to some sort of normalcy, we're all going to want to get back, and if we have space for the arts and encourage the arts, then our children will grow up.
Yeah, I get worried about the black box and make the auditorium even smaller potential, because we've got our stages in our current elementary schools are storage. So then those activities, the talent shows end up here, right?
Yeah.
So you end up maybe with your music program here once or twice a year from each of the different schools. So
Yeah, so stage, right?
don't get me wrong, I got a kid
No.
who love a black box, but I'm just kind of like, look at,
Yeah.
but anyways, that's an,
And you can probably do both, right? Have the auditorium space that they give us and still have that open space in the food services. Link it into the, possibly the gymnasium.
Yeah.
And then we can be flexible in terms of how we do certain things. I mean, you think about it from a student, strictly student perspective, really it's the pep rally and probably Spartan where they're filling the auditorium. So you could do those in other spots.
they are, but I've been to a lot of wall to wall. I mean, through the years, I've gone to a lot of events in that auditorium where it's full.
But remember, like
It's full
concerts.
multiple times a year.
Yeah, so, but you think about, so you take our music concerts, it does, you're right,
Yeah.
it does seem full. But some of that's because we're housing the next group of, say, elementary or
You
middle
are
school participants.
But what are you
So
gonna do
they're
with
taking up
it?
6 rows.
But we do that to keep them in,
Right, well, we can
The
put them in
LGI.
we can put them in the cafeteria.
well, we can put them in the
Or food
cafeteria
services.
now if you think about it, but
Yeah.
we don't do that for a reason,
So they
because we want the
We'll have
little
more eyes on
darlings where,
Just more staffing.
anyways, I'm enjoying everything.
Just the other
else.
optional one you have up there, the overlap of locker rooms, I think there's an emphasis clearly in this town on athletics and sports and
Yeah.
using this facility to its utmost. So what I don't want to do is to lower the amount of locker room space.
Okay, that's good to hear. I mean,
Because it is a priority, and I think having 3 basketball courts will give us some opportunities to have possible tournaments here. You know, if we're able to save the same amount of fields and have some accessibility from the outside. I think that's.
And part of this is just really taking time to think through those things so that you can help explain to other people.
And maybe having you guys as you're going through it, all right, so we do have that one large gymnasium, we do have the auditorium. Maybe we need to get rid of those, maybe that's just not cost effective. But if it is cost effective and you can work it, it gets worked into design. If we keep our current gymnasium, do we get extra gymnasium on the side because we're keeping something we just get and that's it? They fix it and you don't get additional because, you're trying to use the old or,
Maybe that's another slide coming up.
all right. I don't know. I just, obviously,
Yeah, I mean, because there's a cost of anything that
Sure,
we do
the
in this
renovation.
building is all full renovation. And right now, based on the age of the building, we would expect renovation costs to be very similar to new on a per square foot basis.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Based on the fact that you're trying to get these buildings up to current code all the way through, structurally, mechanically, insulation levels.
Well, even to keep the gyms, we would not keep the locker rooms associated.
Right, and we don't really,
And
so
those
that
are
makes
both
it very
exterior
difficult.
walls.
So you don't want to keep the
Yeah.
pool.
Right,
We're definitely not getting full. Oh, that's the other question, that pool that you included, that's 6 lanes?
yes,
Okay. Thank you.
It's Olympic stuff.
so.
No, I'm just kidding.
Don't say, I had somebody ask me that,
Okay,
okay, July,
no,
are we doing
no.
Olympic size?
I apologize. Not Olympic size.
when they talk about the pool, and now I know we've diverted you completely, do they, you do the 6 lanes, is it a certain size around it for seating and that kind of stuff that they allow also that comes within?
Yeah, that's why we have a fair
There's
amount.
no they allow with the
There is
MSBA in a pool.
It's just they.
But what we
They.
smartly decide to
Community.
The community
use.
does.
There's no
I like
reimbursement on
that
the pool.
smartly, you're correct.
Yes, that's the goal here. And I guess I want to just encourage this group
Yeah.
to think about what you need and try not to think about how you can fix. Because we will look at that, but we need,
You have to
what,
look at it in the study.
I know,
how
I
we
know.
do that is
You feel
going to be
like
informed
you're
of what
saving
you
money, but
need.
you're not, in a lot of cases.
Yes, and to cut off your nose to spite your face, right? So, okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Before we get going again, so Mr. Mackey, can you check the the participants or observers and just make sure that we don't have other SBC?
Has been in for a long time.
Okay, can we pull him in as a panelist?
He's already in. He's
Oh,
here.
okay, great.
He should be here.
Just can't see him.
So
I don't see him.
wanted him.
Okay.
there's so much in this presentation that we're gonna keep on rolling.
Yeah,
Yes,
sorry.
let's keep going.
That's okay. This is all really great. And I figured this was gonna be the meeting when you guys really got your teeth into the project.
And you do have time to keep going, right? Okay.
So we're gonna just not to ignore the question of cost and reimbursement, to try and explain this without getting too accurate to the specifics yet. I'm on that one, yes. So how MSBA reimbursement works. So when we talk about eligible and ineligible. So first off, the square footage that is ineligible, if that square footage costs $600 per square foot to construct, all of that is on the district. So the pool, all of, per square foot, think of it that way. And then of that is eligible, this is just the really important thing we want to be sure people understand, because it takes a while for this to make sense to people. So you have a reimbursement rate of 56.48% that you are.
Is that locked in already? Yes.
And is it
For the construction all the way through, do they reevaluate?
That's a good question. I think
It's locked in for the.
it's locked in for the feasibility, and I think that you are correct where if there is an adjustment within, I'll double check, but I think you're right. When we had that MSBA kickoff meeting, I think you asked that exact question. They said that, Yeah,
Why
yeah,
would they
so
tell us the 56 then? What would that?
Because it's for this feasibility study. We're locked in for
You know, that's
this.
the minimum.
So it doesn't matter.
So for right now, you're
Doesn't matter.
submitting for soft costs, so you have consultant costs for
Yeah.
Skanska for the design team, so we're submitting invoices on a monthly basis, and so those are eligible for reimbursement based on the
based on the-
feasibility
okay.
study
Cost now.
funding agreement there. So at the time of project scope and budget for next year, when that takes place, whatever the number or the the caps are at that point, that's what you'll be dealing with. It's not,
So we
for
have to be
3 or
careful how we
4.
talk, because we're not getting 56%.
We are right now
Exactly.
for
But
the.
not in the building, or potentially, maybe.
Exactly.
But they
Yeah.
would recalculate based on their criteria
Right.
and our information at the time.
So it might
Based on the ones that are ineligible as well, as you're saying, on the spaces ineligible?
No, I'm just
Or
talking,
final?
no, I'm not talking about the
Right,
slide.
right.
I'm just talking in general.
Just at the time.
So they locked us in because we signed as a town a feasibility study agreement. And so that locked us in at 56% and change. We would, at the time of the vote, be locked in again for the full project. And at that point, we would have a much better idea, because the study would be done, as to what our real costs are.
Would it be less
It
reimbursement?
could be more
Or
reimbursement.
would it be
as well.
less?
Well, it depends on the criteria.
It
Could be.
So the reimbursement rate is set on basically how your community is doing, poverty levels, free lunch levels, things. So it has nothing to do with what square footage is reimbursable or not.
Right, and so the point,
So the kind of the good news, there is no, if your community is doing poorly economically as a community, your reimbursement rate will go up. If your community is doing better economically, then your reimbursement rate will go down. So in some ways,
can I?
we've had communities where it's gone up a little bit, but really that just means that,
It's a better
economically for their community, things have gone up.
Yeah.
So, when the time comes for the people of the town to vote,
Mhm.
they will know what our actual number is.
Mhm.
In fairness to them, we have to give them
Right,
a number that
precisely.
we know is the minimum they'll be reimbursed.
Right, so this is where it's very important that you not be communicating that you get, that 56% of the project is being reimbursed. That's not accurate. 50%.
Eligible costs.
Yeah, of eligible costs, right? So we've already said 45,000 square feet is ineligible.
Right.
Well, automatically, you're way below 56%, right? But then even within what is eligible, the MSBA is reimbursing 56.40% of $360 per square foot,
Which is not a realistic per square.
which
foot
is
number.
not a realistic.
And it was just updated last year.
What's the realistic square foot number? It's 600?
Maybe 600,
So we're at 30%?
right? And this is what
This
everybody
is
is.
an ongoing discussion at the MSBA's level, and they understand that they're kind of behind the curve on very much so behind the curve on this.
Yeah, they're trying to
They're
spread their
not-
money
They're
as
not-
far
I mean,
and wide as they
Should we
can.
keep going? I mean, that's so drastic.
That's drastic.
To ask the taxpayers to come up with another 20%, oh my God.
A good way, I mean, all of the MSBA calculations are, and we'd be here all day if we really tried to spell it all out for you, but a good way of thinking about it, typically on our past projects is take whatever your reimbursement rate is, And you're usually about 10 to 15 or 15 to 20% lower on the effective rate because of all these caps. So it's only on what they consider eligible.
Right.
So that 56% is really 40, somewhere around there.
Right,
On
well, if
the
they
eligible
600,
square
it'd be
footage.
30% down to
Sure.
15.
Sure.
Right, on the eligible square footage.
Why are we doing, why are we even going MSBA? We might as well go along.
Because you're still getting.
Yeah, some.
Still
We
getting.
might still
But
get
that's why it is very
everybody.
important.
So in comparison, what were our neighbors' effective percentages? Any idea?
Good question,
Well,
probably
effective
around
is a
this.
question, right? Not the.
But our effective will be roughly 15 to 20. Was theirs much higher?
I
We
think
don't
in
know that
general,
data.
this
Their
is,
eligible reimbursement rate was lower.
Well, we know Springfield, Ben, right? Springfield was 80% and
Springfield
I think-
gets the max is 80%, and
Yeah.
of that, we're looking, I mean, we're just finishing up 2 projects there, we're at about 60%
Yeah.
is the effective rate of what they
Right,
actually are
but the
getting paid
other-
from the state.
So you're talking Long Meadow and their high school, correct?
Or Wilbraham, I don't care, but
Their rates were lower than 56% for eligible costs. So they started out in the
and
same
yes, they were
process,
below that as
they were
well.
lower. So they're, I'm just guessing, but let's say, it was 52%. That's not,
Yeah.
that's
Their
not
square
something.
footage cost was probably a little more in line.
So they still would
with-
drop like way we are, but they started
not
low.
like this. They didn't have
Right,
the
and part of
$600
the
square
problem
footage.
is that we also have this inflationary pressure and the MSBA catches up slowly. They raise that number,
When are they going to raise that?
they raise it
For us.
about every 2 years. They don't raise it for you personally.
No, I mean, in order to meet us, are we going to meet that raise, do you think? Should we wait for that raise?
We're
Right,
not going to be
Right,
building
listen.
for a while, so.
Yeah, so it-
So the hope
it's
is
the
that
number is the
they are-
360
they
is
are
locked in at the.
And that was locked in, so the 360, the good way of thinking of it, they upped that last year. And if you go by the every 2-year cycle, we do suspect that next April, they'll be revisiting that number. That's usually around the time frame.
Significantly to 6 or? The last time they did it, they
So the last time they went from 333 a square foot to 360. So just to kind of, and you never know
Okay.
what that.
Then to that point, what was the cost 10 years ago? Or 8 years
Oh,
ago?
yeah,
Per square footage?
probably.
Is it more realistic?
Yeah.
Under 4?
Yeah, somewhere between
So this is
three,
gonna be
three,
an
and
expensive
4.
Greg, Greg, listen to me.
Yeah.
Listen.
We're hitting this at the,
Gregory, listen, here's the thing, and I think that this is important, and this is something I was gonna talk with Mr. Smith about moving forward. We need to let the community know, what will it cost our community to fix this school as it is if we don't choose to have a new high school?
Right.
We'll be paying $600 approximately a square foot at 100% us.
That's right.
As opposed to us getting any reimbursement.
Well,
And this is
but
where
we're not
we,
touching all the square footage.
but the thing of it is if you're gonna get it
But
and
you
you're
don't
actually gonna
change any
put into
classrooms
it.
either.
I know that. I want the new
Right,
school.
but what
You don't have to tell me on the
what
new
I'm
school. I'm
trying
just
to
telling
say
you, we're gonna know the
is
voters and say,
Unfortunately, it's
We're not
how
the voters
it's, we're there, but we're going to have to inform them. If we did the roof and the stuff and fixed insulation and the boiler room and the pool and the this and the that and all of these things, and we made this school, because people out there may think it's cheaper to just renovate. When we explain it to them, and we're going to have to do the numbers, I don't think it's gonna
We
be,
will have the numbers.
no, I think we're gonna have to do the numbers of what will it be to make this.
They're doing that.
We do.
in the
And
study.
that's how we need to present
That's-
it.
but
This
that's
is
part of
what
the
it's gonna
study, Beth.
cost
Yeah.
if we don't vote
Right,
this
that's
in.
what we
Correct.
call the.
And that's, I think, what we gotta sell.
Yeah.
And yes, it's gonna probably be more.
Right.
But you're gonna have a state of the art
That's right.
and our
And you have
property
one-
values
you have
will
one
increase.
shot. Just-
It is, it's tough, it's
you're-
how we inform
Right, you have
people.
one shot
It's tough,
to
right?
solve both your academic issues and some of your community issues. Regardless of the reimbursement rate, you're getting some reimbursement rate.
Right.
And you don't have that shot if, and the numbers, I'm assuming in this study, just bringing everything up to code, renovating some of the things that you said, but not add reno. Just bringing things into code and going through our traditional capital project process. That's gonna be millions of dollars at 600 square feet, and you haven't changed anything in terms of how you
Right.
do your academic program, how rec utilizes the building, how IT is situated in your building. All of that stays the same.
It's not
we
free.
should give a designated rec spot too then. We need to sell this through.
Oh, hey, we got slides coming up.
Right.
Okay,
Okay.
good. Here we go.
Yes.
Moving on. Next slide.
I'm sorry
Yes.
to be the
Can I make, this is John Benzer, can I make one point before you move on? So, you guys are in the program now. If you don't approve this and you get out of the program, you go to the bottom of the list, and then you have to beg to get back in. You can ask Great Barrington about that. And Great Barrington's getting back in now after 7-8 years, and they have to pay the whole bill for the feasibility study themselves. So we really need to come up with a plan that, moves forward, yeah.
But to that same point, then I think we have to keep an eye on the bottom line.
Yeah.
And I do think the leaders.
So we need options, I guess.
That's the intention of
Okay.
this process here, and to your point, Gordon, just real. Go ahead.
Good.
Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, I mean, there's pros and cons to each one of these options. We're gonna take, and Gordon was talking about basically just the base repair option itself. Not to mention, I mean, addition, renovation, and we're gonna spell all this out for you, but there's a lot of things with phasing, with, modular units, with, that, okay, we might be saving some of the building, but we're not thinking about all the costs of what that takes and what that actually means, and it lengthens your schedule. So we're gonna spell out what each of these options means, and, we're gonna put numbers to it so that it makes it very clear for you guys.
Which then you can share, we can all
Right,
share.
and I think it's really important we share. I just wanted to make that, it's very important that we share, and it is our reality, and everybody's moving forward throughout the entire country with this reality, so hopefully it's just
It's
gonna
fine,
become.
we just have to ask our voters to do it, that's all.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think the leadership of our town from all, I think they agree it's important to happen. I really do. I do.
Some other negatives still on we're still on MSBA. Sorry. The MSBA, also just to keep in mind, there are also other rules that are relevant to how that calculation is determined. We were talking about square footage, but there's also site costs. So site costs are capped at 8% of the project costs, which is often very challenging. Again,
Roads,
so that's
parking lots,
landscape, playing
everything
fields,
outside
parking,
fields.
yeah.
8%.
So that can be challenging. You've already done your game field, which is hugely helpful.
But we need a building out there.
Right.
Did we include that?
Coming in.
Yeah, well,
Good.
when we get to that. So they also don't reimburse.
They could be in the woods.
Right.
I'm handing out.
In the woods.
The abatement of ACM materials, swing space, cost of moving, also ineligible. So swing space ends up being a really big kicker, right? So
Talking about swing space in terms of the renovation.
right. So if you chose a renovation, you had to have the kids in another school, or if you brought modulars on site.
They don't
those
look at it as
costs are
part of the permanent
Yeah.
educational.
But we may need to do that regardless of completely new or renovation, potentially.
Not necessarily.
Okay,
We're trying to design around that.
What's that?
If it is a new construction.
You don't have to do the swing space.
With the swings, and you have to, for whatever reason, they're being moved to another site, i.e. think of Pope Francis.
Yep.
Going to Wilbraham. Is that cost included then in MSBA, or is the swing space never?
Never.
So that's I think that was.
Yeah.
you're right, but
If you
even the
did
new
it-
building could be placed on the existing footprint of the
Right,
building.
and then
That's what I'm
we
saying.
operate
They still
here
need swing
while you're
space.
building.
Right.
That's why we're avoiding it.
Okay,
Right. That's why it's.
cool, that's later in the slides.
Anticipation is.
Here's the positive when I was trying to get to.
Yes,
So,
positive.
the positives on MSBA also know that there's potential here to increase your reimbursement rate by choosing to design a high efficiency green school, to adopt best practices for maintenance. The reason being that historically the MSBA saw a lot of money going into school districts that then didn't maintain them properly. So they've tried to incentivize maintenance investments. You aren't relevant to the overlay district zoning or the 40R, but you would potentially be eligible for renovation reuse. It depends on how much of the building's reused. It's, might get you a point or 2 points. So that's something that we would be looking at. But typically you're eligible for say 4 points for sure. It varies 4 to 6. Most schools don't get more than 6.
How many go for high efficiency green schools, how many?
Everyone.
Everything we design, everything our teams design, it's doable.
Okay.
Because we have to get some kind of green building certification regardless, to go a bit beyond, to get the 2 additional percentage points is highly recommended.
It pays
More
off.
money beyond that to like
Well,
go geothermal or solar or whatever it
That's
is.
what, you get that back in your costs over time.
Yeah.
and
to go in
I'd
that
say
direction,
that's the
so-
next conversation that MSB is having, is having, more about that, because there's pressure to support that further as well.
And best practices and routine capital is based on the existing, right? That's not,
That's
yeah,
a
so
score
that's
that you'll
something
get.
they're
Yeah.
gonna give you a score on.
Yeah.
I imagine you'll do
We
well,
already have. It's already happened, right?
Right.
or will happen.
And I bring this up because we're about to look at the options, we've kind of revised this further. And this is just, again, your team homework in a sense, that, remember, as we evolve these options, we're narrowing, and in this window of the PDP, we're going to get costs on a series of options. And then you're not gonna have to pick one out of those, you can pick a couple that we will continue on. But the matrix of how you've selected that, what are the things you've thought about, what are the criteria? This is a way of being sure that you don't, kind of have a bad cup of coffee and focus on one issue only and not think about it all as a group. So, so that's why the encouragement here to think about how you'd like to weight these, and what your priorities are. And we've kind of filled it in based on what we know, but this is not the final conclusion by any stretch of the imagination. Yeah, it's just a draft.
Does the scoring make sense to how it's the weighting is the first column there. And that's where we'd love some input. So, of course, meets educational goals seems like that would go at the top, and that score would count more. So 5 times as important as the one at the very bottom does not require phasing for a longer duration. So then you take that weighted score and multiply it times whatever score you're giving that individual option. So for the base repair code upgrade, it does not meet your educational goals. So therefore it gets an initial score of 0 and a weighted score of 0. An addition renovation does a pretty good job of it, so you get a 5. And a new school, kind of regardless of which location we choose, will do a very good job of meeting your educational goals, so it gets a weighted score of 10. Take that down, so I think we'll take care of the options across the top and the colors, and trying to develop those. If we could get input from you on the rows of which, what criteria would be a good way to illustrate the differences between these options would be great. And then of course also what score they should get. This is pretty subjective of us taking a first stab at it. It was interesting going through it, and that some of the rows that we came up with, you realized don't really have that much of an impact on the scoring. They're pretty consistent all the way across. Yeah. And so in some ways, we've done this in previous districts where this has been a 4-page long document, and it seems very comprehensive, but it also seems very complicated. And now we've done it on some districts where it's one slide, so the public can really understand these were the 6 things we were concerned about, and that's it. And so kind of looking for input from you guys on which end of the spectrum we should go with on.
In terms of, even if we eliminate some of these?
Yeah.
Sure, add to them or eliminate, either way.
Right, because that'll start to weight it. one way or
So
the
like,
other.
and not that I don't care about the neighbors, we are going to hassle our neighbors, and we know it, but when it's done, and then we won't be a hassle anymore. So like, you would say maybe, not that we don't care, you might like eliminate that?
Yeah.
But I think that's probably more traffic flow, right? In terms of all these different projects. I mean, yes.
Right,
it's-
overall, like for the future.
So this is the final.
Like, we don't want the driveway to be in the back where the people have their homes, we want it maybe in
Right,
front of the school.
So if we have, if the
Except it's.
pink option that's not shown up there has all of the traffic going through the residential neighborhood, then that would get a 0 for that.
Okay.
So really nice cars. Get a 1.
Right.
Okay, so next we're going to start looking at some revisions of those development studies that we shared. Remember last time we had a pretend footprint, and now we've put some thinking into that to show some options there. Again, not worrying about the code upgrade, because we all know that's the one you're speaking about, that would just be costing out, bringing the building up to snuff. And then we have to have an ad reno. So Christian, I'm gonna let you walk through all of these, and you have Eric here as well.
Sure. So for the ad reno, we bounced this one around a lot. And really we felt that to really do our due diligence and present to the community that we've really looked at a true ad reno. We wanted to try and save as much of the building as possible, even if we feel that it's going to be quite difficult. So the classroom pods, it would be quite difficult to get those into the sized classrooms and in an arrangement where it's going to meet the educational criteria. But we still thought this is our opportunity to push that forward and show that option. So here we've saved the classroom pods, we've saved the oversized auditorium. We've got a new kind of science wing on the west side of that classroom pods. You know, we can do all sorts of, we can really make this much better than it is today, have more access to the courtyard, have clearer circulation through the building, better sized classrooms within those classroom pods. And then there are some things that are going to be quite difficult in terms of, you know, you can only do so much with that circulation. The classrooms will be able to be larger if we take down the demising walls in between, but the corridor walls, you're pretty much locked with where they are, right? We've kept the where we are right now with the district offices down to the south. And then while at first we were considering saving the gym, really looking at it structurally, it's pretty locked in. It would be very hard to expand onto that gym. So let's tear down the gym, tear down the cafeteria, tear down the pool, and redo that side of the building. So I think this one will become more interesting as we delve into the interior, because this is one where the footprint's set. It's a little bit easier for us to get into what would those classroom pods look like. I think, as we've already talked about today, that the costs of insulating and tearing down almost every single one of those interior walls and structurally tying it to the roof, we're going to get very close to new construction costs. And then the other thing that we still need to figure out is, where will our modular classrooms go on the site? How long will they have to be there? How much will that cost? It will be in the millions of dollars. And that will go into that whole, what is the cost to the community to pursue this type of an approach? On the site, we haven't really done much. You know, I would imagine doing improvements, as it said here, improvements to the fields, improvements to the stadium, but not really changing the circulation much, because it makes a certain amount of sense today, and we're still working around that existing building footprint.
Does that have a pool?
New pool.
There's a pool, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's
You
still
have to
gonna
tear
have the
down the gym.
circulation issues at the stairwells and all that kind of stuff, because you really
Yeah.
are still working with
The bones.
the bones, which I think is huge danger
So when
in
you
certain
say,
areas.
sorry,
No, I'm done.
okay. When you're saying improve or resurface, so all you're doing is resurfacing paved areas, we're not doing anything with drainage or anything like that?
No, I
Because I
think
think
this would have to be a pretty substantial upgrade to the site as well to be a fair balancing match. Otherwise, we're not representing it
I
against.
think
the
our
other project.
capital plan, when we talk about redoing the parking lot, we're talking about drainage and everything
Yeah.
else.
Yeah,
um,
yeah, I think,
Which we have as millions of dollars, if
Right.
I remember correctly. But we had earmarked it for this big project.
I'm gonna move on.
Eric, do you want to talk about that at all, or you think we've covered it?
Yeah, I just maybe want to point out that we would probably want to take a look at that parking lot, since we know, or that we've heard, you know, there's maybe 20% parking over what is actually required, you know, on a day-to-day basis. We would probably want to look at some modifications to the layout of that parking lot to maybe mitigate some of the circulation issues, you know, as particularly in the afternoon, where people are just, you know, flying down those straightaways to get to that northeast entrance. We'd probably want to look at some introduction of landscape islands and other mitigation measures to improve upon that.
Yeah, okay.
As we move forward, are we able to like work with the DPW, however you do it, to say, okay, we may need better traffic control in terms of lights, you know, like, are we able, is that something that we're
obligated as a part of this to do a traffic study
Okay.
that will look more closely at the specific feeders into the school.
Okay.
And that will eliminate those types of issues, yeah.
Okay. All right.
So this is a new, and so from our last meeting, we kind of had two areas that we focused on the new construction. We're calling the center of the site and then the south of the site. And so this afternoon, we're presenting two options for the center and two options for the south. This is kind of the first option for the center. As you can see, it's kind of in an L shape, and a large part of that is so that we're around the existing building. It's not on here, but we basically avoid the footprint of the existing building entirely with this approach. A new main entry, our pods, our classroom wings oriented to the east-west for, again, capitalizing on north and south light as much as possible. Gym and pool to the north. We don't really get into some detail here, but we've explored it in a fair amount of detail within the office and then turned that off to not distract you and get buried in the details. But we have included square footage for district offices on kind of the north side of that gym pod, so closer to the parking, and a two-story classroom wing to the south.
Now, obviously you moved, I'm just looking at like how field placement, the tennis courts would be thrown in there and there'll be basketball courts in there somewhere.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of the study at this point is being sure that it can all fit. It's not
Right.
finalized, and we debated how much of that information to show because we knew it would get a little distracting, but we wanted to verify that, yes, we've thought about that, and some are better than others. Right, exactly, that's the goal.
You're saying district offices are up here?
District offices are up there tied
Very
to.
concerned about that, Mr. Smith.
I want to be there with the athletics.
I know.
Get out there.
In
And
each
the
of them-
parking.
Yeah.
In each of them, we're looking at parking, and we've tried to sort of think about adding, we've heard about a need to spread the parking out. This actually shows a fair amount of parking in this one. Part of it is a question of, do you just leave all the parking up there, or do you try and break it up? And exactly, that's what we keep hearing from the district and the administration is you want to separate the different.
Well, we got a parade, so we need that big parking lot up there still. Right, Ryan? Speak up now.
It would be nice, yes.
Well, but it's here.
Yeah, I don't wanna see it drive the.
We feel that thing. No, but we have sporting events that we certainly fill that, which is right off the stadium. So I would say a lot less parking would not be
In this area.
in that area. I think
And the other thing to know is that in these
We're
options,
managing parking.
again, ultimately, we don't want to pick based totally on what you see on parking because a lot of these things can swing around.
Yeah.
But it's good to talk about because
the other thing is, are we concerned about the distance from the main parking lot to the front door?
right, that's one of the test points here. So here you see actually there's both a visitor area nearby and potentially a faculty area behind to the west of Pod 1.
That's
And
faculty parking.
yeah, so that dashed line is sort of representing not everybody's going down there, or and Eric can speak a little bit more to this because this is on his side of the table. But we were trying to convey hierarchy on the circulation, so you didn't think they were all the same, because you wouldn't want everybody to be cutting through the site. So how would we control for that? But trying to create alternatives so that there's a little bit of parking to support the rec fields farther away, and something close to the building. But the idea is students would walk. Yes.
And, we would like the district's input on how you feel, different vehicles using the different site access points, whether, that would be met with opposition or not. So for instance, we would love to have your thoughts on, whether you think the community would support school buses, let's say, using the Norden Street, access points. I think what you'll find with all of these options is that there are many different ways that we could arrange the circulation, but at the end of the day, we want to make sure it works for you, for the school community, but also the surrounding community. So if there are strong opinions or there's a consensus, let's say no school buses use Norden Street, or no staff uses Norden Street, or maybe that is a possibility, we would welcome that input, because that could start to help shape how we start to shape the circulation. The other thing, if I may, we hope you could indulge us on is, taking a step back. When the last meeting, we spent a lot of time talking about circulation, and which routes the buses would go and the cars would go and where the parking is. But if we could take a step back, I think as we plan this site, this building is extremely important. We all know this campus is extremely important for the community. But one of the things that we feel is we do have to remember that the primary use of this facility is as a school, as a high school. And so we want to make sure that we're making decisions that help to enhance this whole campus for its use as the high school. Those spaces need to be flexible so that the community can also interact with them and use them too. But we want to make sure that we get as much out of this site as we can for the students. When the students arrive on the site, the second they arrive, we want the community and the students to say, wow, we want to learn here. We want to be here. We want to interact here. We want to experience different parts of our lives here. And so, you know, circulation, resolving circulation, making sure there's adequate parking, making sure there's adequate field space and that you're not losing program. Those are all very, very important elements. But we also want to look beyond just those three facets. We want to look at, you know, what are the opportunities that each building placement offer for outdoor learning, outdoor classrooms, proximity to, you know, wetlands for science classes, things of that nature, connections between the campus and the surrounding community and possibly the bike trail, you know, pedestrian safety while they're on the site and then connecting out to various points, you know, to the surrounding areas. We want to be careful that we don't just select a building location based on where the parking is or where the driveways come in or how the fields are set up. We also want to look at these connections. So we want to look at these other spaces besides just athletics that the students are going to hopefully use and that'll make this campus a source of community pride and that the community can also use too. So, you know, there's the central and the south. Each of these options is going to have some similarities, right? In terms of connections to Maple Street, right? Connections to a larger parking lot close to the one that's there now. The central offers opportunities to be a little bit closer to the stadium, right? Maybe have some outdoor flexible space for outdoor learning that's a little bit further away from the wood line, from the existing wetlands. And then also, you know, maybe the central site offers a little bit more opportunity for contiguous open space, as you'll see. So there's some similarities for the building placement, and what we would just like to get input on is how the district feels, you know, those spaces could benefit the community.
Okay, I'm gonna keep us moving here.
Yep. Just on the buses, we have the mini buses coming out for Norton currently.
Mhm.
And I would say no on the big buses.
On the
coming
big
out.
buses, yeah.
And we do have staff obviously coming through.
10% of staff or so would say park
Yeah.
in the back.
It's very tight, the cars fly through. If
Yeah.
I was living there, I'd be like, look, this was not, they even wanted us in the past to have that closed only for handicapped people for sports, I think. Remember, there was a while ago, so we, you know,
But we're still gonna do it.
I think the challenge we have is meeting both the desire for separation and
You do
at
have
the same time.
our larger buses going through Marshall.
Mhm.
So, I mean, you do have larger buses going through. Only the smaller buses come behind the school.
So this is another option, again, on the center of the site, again, avoiding the existing footprint of the building. You can just see, you know, in terms of the design between the two different options, number 3 versus number 4 that we're on here, it's a little bit leggier, you know, there's a little bit more exterior envelope, so maybe a little bit more expensive, but also affords the opportunity of a really nice kind of open outdoor courtyard between the school and the existing stadium. Again, trying to get the classrooms with as close as we can to south and north orientation, and breaking up the mass a little bit more. But otherwise, I think it's fairly similar to the previous option.
now the parking the bottom, is that parking on the bottom left where Norton comes in? No, not there, the lower.
Yep.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's a parking.
That would just be to support, you know, similar to what's happening along that road now, but
Gravel there.
but pulling it together into one spot.
Okay.
On this design, quickly, with the stadium there, a potential to add onto the whole building that the facilities and the snack shack that we might need, is that potential, because we're so close on pod 2, is that
Yeah, though I,
That's part of the building.
yeah, you could, though I would think I think it's a lot more distance walking
Okay,
anyway. I
just
think you'd
thought.
rather have it over on the
Yeah,
complex.
I think it would, I'm just cost-wise, I don't know if cost would help us
Yeah.
cost.
I don't think it
And,
would help really.
okay, fair.
Yeah, I'm sure. I think so.
So option 5, this is down at the south end of the site, and again, as Eric was mentioning, you know, you kind of see more of a continuous green strip through the site to the north of it. The parking is much more isolated, and we need to do a new larger lot to the south. And then we need to turn the existing parking lot into new fields, so there's a cost differential there between the two options. But again, looking at this again, kind of like last time, this one is a bit more compact, a bit more efficient. And we have another version that spreads it apart a little bit more.
And there's a buffer between the neighbors, and you're not really by the neighbors, are
It's
you?
industrial.
Right,
It's industrial.
right, it's
Okay.
industrial on this side, and then this gets your parking away from the neighbors up at the top.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Or
so it's more of
fields.
a green entrance
Yeah.
and more field entrance.
You're actually closer, that parking lot's closer to the building.
Yeah,
Yeah.
When you eventually are said and done.
And I like you using that space to the bottom right, which I know is mostly wet, right? All that
Yeah.
dark green.
I mean, the team is excited about making more use of that natural wooded area. You know, and the potential of.
I love that you
using
guys,
one site.
I know, but I'm like, I don't know. I think it's a great idea. I just wonder how many people are actually gonna use it
In terms of the trail.
in terms of just,
I think you would, because we could hit the rail trail, right? Isn't
I
that
think
right up there?
kids, high school children and hijinks
Beautiful
happen
walk,
in the
so
woods
we
as
could
it
have
is right now.
access, is it?
Yeah, that's,
From the rail
Does it
trail?
get to the rail trail?
yeah, that's the idea, right?
Fantastic.
Is to link it up.
Bikes for kids riding their bikes.
The light green takes us in?
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, I just like that you're using some of it, but I mean, you still have that whole big clump on the right side.
Right, this is all deep woodland.
So where is the rail trail? Does it attach? It's up a little higher?
That's Shaker Road, right?
That is Shaker Road, right?
It's right there.
That's the bike path.
Ah,
That's better.
They're still on there.
What?
I think my battery just died.
Uh-oh.
Someone's still on.
Gordon has it here.
I have it up here, but then Mr.
You
Mackey
might
will
have
have
to
to.
zoom in.
that?
Do you have, your what, are you controlling screen or am I?
No, you're controlling.
It almost keeps it.
Fascinating.
That's weird.
It just froze.
Okay.
We need to dial in.
Would this option
still here.
keep the tennis courts, potentially?
It's possible, yeah.
Potentially,
I
okay.
mean,
Yeah,
they'll-
Nora, you're
Okay. Can you zoom,
We'll fit that.
Joy? Sorry.
We can go to the
We
next
kept it
one.
much longer than you thought.
I was gonna say,
It's our fault.
this is what happens when the meeting goes long.
Mr. Mackey, you have to zoom in on the,
I like this
I
one.
like
ones
this one,
behind.
Greg.
The screens behind if you can.
What do you think?
Yeah, this one is just, again, we thought of the one before as kind of hugging the corner, and this one not hugging the corner, kind of falling down into that space is somewhat underutilized to the far south.
I like,
Um,
yeah.
Now, may I ask a question on, so up here,
Right.
if that's sort of the central office, could that, if we're thinking community, also be a space for rec? The rec department?
You're talking about like potentially bringing that program over here.
Not the full thing.
Well,
Just some
possibly.
office
I mean, if you,
I think we're going way too far in that. I would say a satellite office, but that's a big square footage. We can't just.
hey, what, five people? How many people in rec? 4?
2, 3, 4.
I mean, then you solve access, communication, you solve a lot of.
No, I know, and I understand that, and the usage is important.
Right.
But I think we're adding square footage that
I am muted.
we don't get any reimbursement for.
True,
So
but it solves the space issue because you're opening up.
Turn your speakers up too.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no,
It's a
I
total add-on on top, so I guess
No,
what it
I
costs is
understand. But-
$10 million.
But does it help the town?
We gotta pass this building first.
No, I had thought of that too, though, Greg. I had thought of,
Well,
if you
if
put
you
central
think about it
office
as
and
a
rec
community
and
building,
LCAT all together, the town needs to understand that's
It
like a
solves-
capital from their end
And
almost.
it solves a space issue for the town hall, because it opens up space.
I know, Gordon, but if we go over, I'm not even gonna say the number, we're not gonna get it, I think. If we go over 25% of our neighbors,
I'm just trying
we're
to,
gonna be done, but
Make
we're
it
already there
community
by a long shot, I think. We'll talk about it.
okay.
So in this plan, is that parking lot
Right.
where the existing parking lot is
I'm out there.
Is that expected for where the students are gonna be, and then they walk up, like they would walk from there?
Generally speaking, that was our first thought here, is that the students can be asked to walk a little farther than the faculty, rank having its privileges,
No, I understand
Where
that.
do you have faculty?
So you have two parking spaces, one to the south and one directly
is
to the
faculty here?
north. And I believe, Eric might be able to tell us the counts, but I'm guessing that's probably 200 parking spaces there based on my conversations with Sam, to the one right above.
Yeah.
Eric, do you have a rough idea of these? And obviously these aren't finished, but the idea is it's pretty solid amount of parking there.
Like if we flipped that, and I know these are just preliminary, but if we almost move that parking up, as much as I hate to say where the tennis courts are, and then put the tennis courts and the basketball and everything would fit into that back where the arrow is right now, would that be neater, cleaner, less kids walking, making paths like, the cows
I
in
see.
Boston and that sort of a
You'd rather
thing?
bring more parking down and put your,
And what, go
some of
double
your
lots,
rec
so you have
up
students
there.
staffed
Yes.
right next to each other?
Yeah, but then you'd have fields by where those homes are on Maple Street, you'd have, I'm just thinking then it's all in one place.
Yeah, what costs are gonna get there too, though, because now we're changing the existing parking lot. This
Yeah.
has our existing parking
so
lot.
it did sound like you needed to do that anyway from.
Well, but this has our existing parking. We needed a parking lot, is that what
But,
you mean?
yeah, but
Oh, yeah.
what I was hearing is that it was a capital plan that you needed to change all the drainage on that, so we're.
Yes. So
Yeah.
there's,
When you
right,
rent.
oh, so it doesn't matter, you mean?
That's
Because
what I'm
redoing it from scratch, basically.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter, it's there already.
I mean, I don't wanna.
I think you're right.
For sure.
No, I think you're right.
You were intending to do,
Yeah, it was on the
It's
capital.
It's on the capital
It
plan.
floats, it lifts and falls, it heaves.
4 million.
As it does, literally.
It does.
It collapses every once in a
Yeah,
while.
we'd have to renovate that.
so, but what I'm hearing that's interesting is you're thinking, you did respond to the green space closer to the neighbors.
Yeah, I mean, I think they certainly aren't gonna complain about it, and I feel then you have a nice, we know it's flat, we know we know there's nothing wet there. I mean, we're gonna have to get, huh?
You're putting like a game field?
Well, I don't know, like, you'd have to replace the tennis courts, right?
Yeah.
And you might be able to fit,
Like-
I don't know, you might be able to fit that basketball court we were thinking in, but we might lose I don't know, but what I'm just saying is, I know from my perspective, I'd rather just have the parking lot, with maybe a little green space in the middle, sort of kind of what you've done, but like.
Yeah, like rows of.
Yeah, and then that cluster's just its
all
own
more
little
centralized.
world. It's closer to everything. It's closer to, you like it like that?
I like this one.
No, I do. I like it. I would think moving them.
How about
think-
sunlight?
I
They're all
think just,
relative.
if I may, the only thing I want to call attention is we typically try not to put things like tennis courts or fields where people would be playing lacrosse that close to a residential property line, because you can end up getting balls and things like that going into the neighboring properties. The other thing that we have to be a little cautious of is field proportions. So if you see how big that parking field is, and I don't have the exact numbers, but just looking at it by eye, we're still planning on roughly 400 parking spaces, on this site. It's just a rough number, plus or minus. Once you start to move those kind of where the tennis courts are now and push the fields out, you might be left with a very odd sized field that may not be wide enough to accommodate, your athletics program. So just some things to keep in mind in terms of field proportions and locations.
Now, I like that particular. I think you liked it too. It looked more compact. You're saying this was a little bit less than the one that kind of had the V.
The square footage of the building?
No, it was more compact than.
This previous one.
Footprint, building
The
footprint wise.
Yeah, I mean, could you take something like that and move it up more to the side of where, if you wanted to, I guess I'm just not a fan of like all the different parking spots, so far away. And I'm not saying kids can't walk, but I'm also saying, I mean, if it's pouring out, how smelly do they get when they come in the wet? Or then, no, but I'm not,
I know,
I'm
they get
not
wet
just
either
talking
way,
about
though.
that.
Yeah,
It's getting drop off and all that stuff, but I guess you guys will explain that later. Okay.
But your thought maybe taking this footprint and moving it up towards the
Yeah, almost like
central
where the
part
other one
of the
was.
outside.
Yeah,
That's definitely good.
I like that it connects to the.
But I think this gives us more green space, right?
Yeah.
By putting it all the way back.
Does it?
It definitely divides, I mean, one thing, this one kind of divides the green space up a bit more rather than keeping it all on one side, which is a positive or negative depending on how you look at it. But
This gives you a view of the whole campus on the approach. I know a lot of
Yes.
visiting people
Just
here
like-
can't find anything anywhere if they're trying to get to the back or this office
agree.
or
I think
anything.
that's-
So this gives you a view of everything as you're approaching, which is
Yeah.
nice, refreshing.
What I said to Dory when I saw these two, I said, this is the school in the park.
When,
This is
yeah,
the school
yeah,
in the
yeah.
park because you do have the scope of the site.
yeah, there's a kind of an arrival and a transition.
Yeah.
Some are, we definitely want to try and capitalize on the existing large trees near the main entry off of Maple Street. And then some of these are new.
Planting trees. Planting trees?
Is that one over by the pool in this plan at all? That's like one of my favorite. That tree's just like,
The rock
I
maple.
know, I was gonna say, if one tree could get
There's a big
saved.
rock maple there.
Yeah.
Next to the tennis courts.
Is that there or is it gone?
Oh.
It's okay if it's gotta go.
Trees.
He said it's staying. I know that. That's like the coolest tree. It's like our only shade tree. Yeah.
Taking notes, Eric.
Okay.
Which one is that? The one by the tennis courts or the one by the bike rack?
You know what? It dumps leaves on the tennis courts.
Yeah, it's fine.
Big
Okay.
one.
Now
No,
we're
it's
getting into
actually by the
details.
tennis
All
courts.
right.
It's okay, that's the least of our
We're going
problems.
Okay.
So,
She's got a quiz coming up.
Here we go.
Oh, nope, there's one more.
One more.
Yeah, 7.
Go up? Okay.
Perfect. So this is just to show an idea of separating the pool into its own distinct building and pulling it apart for the
Up top?
Pool and district office.
district offices.
Ooh. How about IT? Is IT up there?
Yes.
Nice. Pool, district office, IT,
Yeah.
laps.
sauna, nice locker room.
Bird's moving in.
I got this.
Yeah, I wouldn't, I understand it, but it's not, I'm not, I think the pool has to be attached. We have enough trouble getting our students to swim
Mhm.
during class. I think you ask them
Oh,
to
yeah,
walk across.
Ryan and I will be there.
I like the idea, but I don't think it's practical.
Yeah, even just for wayfinding, trying to find central office, they pull up to the front, now you're gonna have to tell them, well, it's the building way over there.
Oh, they're right next to us in the parking lot.
Well, I mean, like when they go.
They're coming to us first.
Okay.
Then you have to tell them to go to the high school, which is over there.
Unless they want to swim.
I think the
Explain
park
the pool.
situation.
All right, next slide.
All right.
Everyone wants a health spa.
Just trying to stay healthy.
All I want is a window.
You can be up there with the pool. Okay.
This is kind of this is a key that I probably should have placed a little earlier, but just to help you understand why those different greens and what they represent. So the dark green representing the existing landscape resource and kind of more natural areas versus the athletic program spaces versus what we think of as ecologically infused landscape around the school and or kind of doing healthy things, throughout the parking and areas like that, and then student-focused landscapes. And, we do look at these and see which has more opportunities for that. The center building concepts create more opportunities for space right around the school, potentially, but putting it further south, obviously connect to the rail trail kind of connection and some of that woodland, which is an interesting potential gesture that hasn't been here historically that could be really interesting. So that was just to share some of that so you understood it. And next. And again, we tried not to get over obsessed with confirming routes here, but we were trying to think about the district asking for, this separation of traffic and to the degree possible without making these connections to the community that might become too much of a problem. So this was again, to some degree, based on what we're hearing, we can try and reorient a little bit, but just to
What are the
understand.
colors? What is each color?
I believe the red was intended to be the bus loop, correct, Eric? And the blue is the student loop.
So this one, buses are way up.
Yeah, because there's no connection off to the residential. So that avoids that altogether, but that it doesn't solve the current, it's meant quite similar to what we have already in some ways.
Yeah, I mean, you still have to route your smaller buses in here.
Well, I think potentially with
Less
the
than-
entrance exit being one on Maple, we can put a light there that functions in and out,
Proper one.
and that would be very advantageous. I don't know if there's room to get a third lane in for a left-hand
Yeah.
turn in.
That I think is definitely something that's gonna.
If we can cut into our own space, that would be ideal. I don't know that we can get it.
That to me is like one of the biggest, it sounds stupid, but it's like one of the biggest things when we transition to this is, I honestly don't know how we've never lost a child crossing at that light, because
Yeah.
I'm proud of every one of them that has survived, because it's difficult. You're coming, there's the turn, these people are coming this way, and just a proper situation there, however you manage it would be lovely. So these are all the 6 proposals. They're different things.
Just trying to indicate.
Which
This
one
is more
utilizes, okay. All right.
But also getting input today that the entrance to the west sounds like not such a
I wouldn't bring big buses
Yeah.
or students.
so we can,
Parks, faculty,
We could bring
staff,
staff through
Yep.
there. Yeah.
or the mini buses come back there.
Yeah.
And that's happens today, so that wouldn't be an issue, but.
Because when you're coming from Marshall, from Chestnut Street, and you're driving down that street, there's a curve that's there that I have to be very cognizant of every single solitary time, because the way it turns, you find yourself in the left lane very easy. You know what, by like Lori or Judy, whatever that is. And I feel like, especially if we're routing kids that direction,
Yeah.
I don't think that's, right.
Is there a desire, just quickly, is there a desire to eliminate service access off of Norden? Or is that, because again, we got to keep in mind that most likely this school we were going to be planning for a full loading dock, which is a little bit different than the situation you have now. Is the intent to have service vehicles enter from Maple Street and eliminate that?
No.
Yeah, they come through Norden now.
even large.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like our food trucks are the
All our IT deliveries.
waste,
That way they don't get caught in the bus.
But they don't have to.
well, yeah, no, that's,
And I like the idea of them not driving around the whole building,
Yeah,
which none of them are recommending, I think.
I agree. I
depends
think
on
that's-
when they're coming. You don't want those guys.
So that's fine. If it makes sense to come off Norton, then we should do it, but.
Timing wise, right, you can make that happen. Sounds like either way, or,
Yeah, I would say either way, yeah, because they're coming in that way now.
right.
I think just having more entrance and exits helps to split the traffic up a little better. And especially during the morning and during dismissal, Maple Street's a parking lot, so having that second route, it's good for, the smaller buses and stuff. People are coming back now.
Yeah, so almost we need another loop coming in off the Norton, like a mini horseshoe on the.
Yeah.
I don't know how we do it. I mean, I'm sure you'll figure it out, but if we bring those little buses in
Yeah.
and the loading dock will, if they bring in a tractor trailer, now they turn around at the very end here. So we'll need that turnaround space.
Yeah,
Yeah, having that,
Yeah.
It's not
more entrances and exits to the.
No, I'm with you, especially to stick a tractor trailer into the bus route, you don't want.
right. I mean, it's interesting because that's
2:00.
one reason why, where you need that loading dock is interesting in different plans too. I mean, I kind of find myself tending to want the loading dock to be on the backside of the gym side of things, so that actually you're not coming off of Norton, but kind of coming more towards what I think of as the service between the gym and the field house, so that you have more uninterrupted nature around the classrooms and you don't have vehicles driving around the classroom areas or around the cafeteria, like now, as you currently have. So that we'll get into, but you can see some of that, it's not necessarily pulled out, but I think on the L and the J are trying to show service on the right-hand side. again, just wanting you to now think about that as you look at these criteria, because different things matter to you. It'll help you think about that. And if you can maybe share if people could email some reactions to the criteria to Gordon so we can kind of absorb it, that would be helpful. We have to narrow, is that where we are next here, Christian? For our PDP submission, we wanted to show a south and a central in order to get costs, see what the difference of building deeper into the site would be.
Yeah.
So if you have a preference between these two, again, we're not going to get into full design on either of them, and if there's enough malleability between them, we can kind of pick up what you like and dislike of each, but we're just prefer to show just one because the pricing is going to be the same, essentially, for the most part here, unless you still feel strongly that we should show two options here.
So we are getting a cost estimate at the end of this PDP phase, right, in late August, and they're just, for the architecture side, they're looking at the square footage. They're giving it a number based off of what they're seeing in Massachusetts right now, and that's it. Once we get down the line, they'll start figuring out the number of windows and types of finishes and all of that, but that's why, as Dory's saying, it's just nice to show.
It's a tripod.
I would say that's probably more architecturally appealing when you're on the approach, right?
Right.
Potentially, it's not as rigid of a look as you approach. Is there a cost difference because of a larger building or anything?
At the level of detail we're talking about now, we don't
Probably not, but
see it.
in the long run, probably it's like.
From left to right?
Yes.
Oh, really?
Well,
Percentage?
Did you say
you have to run the surface area around,
3%, 5% maybe,
yeah.
if that.
Yeah, and again, it is gonna be very much building cost times X.
Yeah.
The
it's gonna
difference
square
between the
footage.
options, though, will be in this, maybe there's a different site
Yeah.
design with each one that might influence the estimates at this phase. Like an extra circulation loop or
Everything's about the same except for the physical shape of the building, right?
Yeah.
You like the tripod?
Yeah, but get
Yeah.
the notch next to the sports field where you can have, more hardscaping and like a better park type area there where students can go out and have breakout sessions and stuff out there. It'll be just a cool concept.
Tripod? Everybody's good with, go with the one?
Just for the,
Do you need any kind of vote now or no?
No, I mean, this is just informal. But we'll go with it.
On the southern side, we'll go to the next one.
Alright.
536.
Flying J. I like the name.
It's
Right?
a
How
truck,
can
it's a
not
truck stop
Flying
out west.
J, right?
Yeah.
Was it a truck stop? Is there-
Yeah, it's a Chino truck stop.
It is, it's funny,
Stop,
it's
yeah.
funny.
Yeah, again, I think that we have more opportunity for architecturally appealing on the Flying J, I would say.
yeah.
As long as that becomes the name of the high school.
We might confuse people.
Next one down, so required is the renovation addition. And then, it sounds like we should probably not include the separate full building.
We get discount or not?
I don't know, I kind of like that being up there. Ryan didn't want to be with me.
Great.
That's your spot.
Gordon Smith building?
We'll name them Spa, Gordon Smith Spa.
I will keep swimming. That will be the trade-off.
Just keep swimming.
All right, school tours and student engagement.
Today would have been a great day for school tours because that whole parking lot up by my office, or hallway by my office is completely flooded.
Already,
I think
before or
you're
after
talking
the rain
school tours
started? From the rain, yeah.
No, not at this school.
This is looking at some of the newer
Yes.
schools around us. Keep getting
Yeah.
ideas.
It's
But that's true, we could.
Let's talk about the student engagement first. I think it's next slide up in front of the Zoom people. And Phil, do you want to talk a little bit about this?
Student engagement. So I feel, I put out to you for your consideration the idea of involving the end user in the process and in the design itself. So these are a series of suggestions, thoughts. We've had many building committees that have had 1 or 2 or 3 students on the building committee. You know, it could be a senior because that person has the sort of most experience with the school, but a sophomore or junior because they're going to be with the process for a longer period of time. So as we've also put together a student survey that we can get to you as a draft. And the idea is that it would go out over the summer, and it would be an online sort of what I'll call Survey Monkey. But I think there's another Google one that all the kids are accustomed to. But the idea of getting their input on a whole series of how they like to learn, where they like to learn, individually, in small groups, in large groups, and so on. And then we would eventually get together in September with groups of, say, 10 to 15 students. But the survey would allow for input from a whole lot more. Later as the project moves along, have students involved in the design meetings, in looking at materials and colors. Again, we think of it in our context of adults, but they may have very strong opinions on that. And so, you know, these are all out there for discussion, but we put that forward as something for you to consider.
I'll just say, when I was with, my daughter was watching in the last visiting meeting, and she was hilarious to listen to because she had a very set opinions, what she liked, what she's, media center, if it doesn't have a book. Yeah. Yeah, she says you might as well not have a media center if you don't have a book. So I think it is that's important to her.
Yeah.
It is very important to get the kids' feelings on it. And I would be all for that.
And I always find the committee hears amazing things from them that they would not have thought they were going to hear. So it's very helpful.
Do you have a draft of the survey already?
We do have a draft. We can send it out to you.
Yeah.
We were just tweaking one or two.
I mean, it's easy for us to send the survey out in the summer.
Well, we were going to put it into a whole Google Doc. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We'll send it out. Well, we'll have it in the Google Docs format or
Sure.
Google Survey format for you. And we want to be sure we code it so that we get the answers in a way we can analyze the data effectively.
Can we
Maybe
ask
share it
if
with
they're
Ryan and me
interested
so that
in being
Share
part?
it.
Yes, we can add that as a question. Are you interested in participating?
Yeah, because you might find those are the kids that you could get that 10 to 15 group with.
Yeah. Another thing we mentioned there is engaging with faculty in making curriculum connections. And I did reach out to all the department leaders and said, here's an example of a math class that connected to a design project. You know, if there's something that ties into your environmental studies program, you know, you need to plan ahead, not just kind of dump it in. It doesn't work as effectively, but if it can overlap with your curriculum, we'd be happy to support that as a way of kind of exchanging, because we know it's asking a lot for their time, just like it is of yours. And it's a way of giving back and connecting us. And ultimately it helps the school get better as a design to have their voices. So, and then in construction, there's opportunities, again, to do sort of targeted engagement around the construction process.
Yeah.
But the idea of bringing people onto the building committee is something you all would have to act on. And we can ask questions and try and find some folks for the survey.
And is that, okay, maybe we can ask questions
Yeah.
from the survey, just as you said.
Well, maybe from the survey, if you ask students who are interested to be in the 10 to 15 group, and then of those kids, if you're feeling some kids are too shy to talk out loud, and some are very, opinionated, some are, you know what I mean? But you might be able, from that group of kids, maybe find a group that would be interested for 2 or 3. And you can, not to say to pick and choose, but you might want kids with like 2 or 3 different
Yeah.
angles.
Yes.
Of school, you know?
Great.
So on school tours, there's a lot to learn from how other communities have done their buildings, designed their buildings. And so there's an awful lot of things that have been talked about in the visioning process and in the process of interviewing teachers that talk about how spaces are used and to see them in action. For example, this is North Middlesex, and North Middlesex has 4 different zones for dining, as opposed to one large cafeteria. It has independent chairs from the tables that allow you to have things like set up the chairs for a performance or a meeting, and being able to do that with 300 or 400 people, as opposed to expecting parents and invitees to sit at tables that have integrated seating. The idea of taking science and distributing it into the houses, into the pods, are all features that I think can be very easily understood when seen. So, Helen, I may have jumped in where you were supposed to talk about it, but I just wanted to say that there's an awful lot of academic and pedagogy that is represented in the buildings.
Yeah, I think, so you don't have to convince this group. I think we've been talking about this now for a bit of time, or at least certainly connected with the visioning sessions. And we've talked about a number of buildings, and we're realizing we can't do them all in one day. And we're realizing we can certainly do them over time. But one that kind of rose to the top based on Dory and Phil's conversation with Frank, especially, was this one, North Middlesex. It's a drive from here, so this is a good chunk of a person's day. But understanding we'd be seeing it if we do want to do this sooner rather than later without people in it. We'll make the scheduling easier, I'm sure, on their end. We'd like to propose coming up with a day. Certainly the school building committee is invited, plus, school committee maybe.
Yeah.
Whoever you'd like to. I think we can really especially bring a big group if it's during the summer. But we should just target a day, I think, based on your calendars, and we can work it from there. But this is one that really seemed to make sense to see based, again, on some of the conversations during programming and the schedule conversations that Dory and Phil had with Frank.
Where is North Middlesex located?
It's due north of Fitchburg it's in Townsend.
Okay.
Which is due north of Fitchburg on the New Hampshire line. It's about an hour and a half drive.
I did a job there once in Townsend, a long time ago.
Yeah. So it's more like 2 hours from here. From here to Western Mass. So.
School, do a little vacation in New Hampshire.
There you go. Just hop over the line. So do you want to maybe get us a date or two, work with your group here?
We can have a lot of calendars to try to coordinate.
I know. You're not going to get everybody.
Did you have a date in mind?
We can reach out to them.
So during.
Are you thinking July, August? What are you thinking?
Let's do
August.
August. Yeah, like early August, maybe right after we send stuff to the cost estimators.
More back into being,
Yeah, like the first half of August.
you're so common leisurely, right? For a couple weeks.
Yeah, I mean, depending on people's vacation schedules,
What do you got, Gordon?
I mean, August, that,
You could also probably send out a poll to
Yeah.
everyone.
week of August
This
8th.
might be easier to do it here though. We did it last time, just
Yeah.
lock it in. Okay.
The week of, like the week of the 9th would be all right, the 10th.
I'm good like 8, 9, 10, 11 that week. Even 12 I could do.
11th, I think we may have we do have a leadership team meeting. So 9th,
8th,
or
8th, 9th,
10th, yeah, one of those
8,
days.
9, 10?
8, 9, 10.
Okay.
Great.
How's that for others?
Works for me.
Steve?
Are you away?
I will be away starting the 8th, but that's okay. Don't revolve it around me.
August 8, 9, 10.
I'll bring you FaceTime.
That's right.
Would you go
We've also thought
necessarily?
about
Yeah.
It would depend.
Yeah.
You don't hold it up for me.
Okay.
We might also be able to do a second day.
Yeah, we did, Frank will be back. Frank's away now, so he'll
You
be
know,
back.
Oh, so 2, yeah.
Yes.
We'll want
I would
Frank.
also suggest, some key teachers be part of this, maybe department heads, would be important, and guidance, and others. I think it's important for the faculty to see this in operation because this represents a lot of things that they may not necessarily be accustomed to.
So Phil, do you want to float those dates by North Middlesex? And assuming any one of those works, then we can doodle poll it from there?
We can certainly do that.
Okay. Okay. All right, great. We'll get that in the works.
How old is that building?
When did that open?
How old is it, Phil? 2017, I want to say? 17?
We probably could make, although we don't know the superintendent to our Wilbraham anymore, but we probably at some point.
We
could
do, I
just
know who it is.
Visit, yeah, you do.
Yeah.
We could probably just maybe, it'd be more casual to go visit them.
Sure.
In
You can
Long
see,
Meadow
go
or-
take a look at Westside.
Yeah.
We talked about that,
Yeah.
and part of the thinking about this school is that it's more recently opened.
Yeah, no, I know, I'm just talking
But
casually,
casually,
as not,
I think
yeah.
A closer visit is helpful too, and
Yeah.
we've talked with Frank about Minnetonka.
Yeah.
You know, seeing some of the athletics facilities specifically of things that they like about how that's working.
They really like that, how the building is so close to the athletic fields and how that's worked.
I think the West Springfield, if only to see the swimming pool complex, that has all of the parts and pieces to the pool. So it has the 6-lane pool, the observation area, which is disconnected from the deck, the showers that are required, storage required. Overall it's 15,000 square feet, but it's and we show in the program 10 because it has a multiplier. When the multiplier is applied, it'll be the 15, but the 15,000 is a gross square footage, and it has all the parts and pieces that are needed for this type of program. So the building, the school is good too, but North Middlesex is more recent. But the pool complex is quite good, quite relevant.
See that?
Yeah. We saw it when it was in its construction phase, remember?
Yeah.
Oh,
That's good.
when we had a dream. Now we're in our
We're
dream.
in it.
We're in it.
You're living the dream.
Defining the dream. Defining the dream.
All right,
Okay.
what's next?
Good for
All right.
Clapping in
Moving into communications, good
Yeah,
communications
we can give a
update?
quick update.
Yeah.
No slides, just wanted to let everyone know, Skanska and the design team, we met with Gordon and Don earlier today to talk about plans for National Night Out, which is August 2nd. So we do plan to do a building project booth on the day, and we'll have Skanska and the design team there, and hope that some school building committee members can be there as well to represent the committee. And you know, it's one of our, other than the community forum, our second opportunity to get out there and educate the community on the process. So we do plan to give a handout, and that will have like your FAQ information on it, and information on the process and the timeline. And also our hope is today during new business, we can select a date for a community forum this fall. So we'll also advertise that. And the design team mentioned that they are working on a survey that will be put on an iPad. So that'll be an interactive way for community to get some input from the community. And also through that, collecting their email addresses so that we can create a mailing list. So eventually, like maybe when we have a flyer for the community forum, we could send that out to the a mailing list. And also the design team's going to be working on a little bit of a visual identity for the project. So maybe, you know, a logo if you want to call it that, but we'll then put that on the website to get some branding going on.
No dollar signs.
Dollars.
Say, yeah.
So yeah, those are the plans. Did I miss anything on?
No, so that was it. And we didn't have a proposed day for that next community forum meeting, but we did talk about September seems like a pretty good slot for it. I don't know if it makes sense earlier, mid, late.
Open houses.
So we want whatever's gonna bring in the most people, so.
We want to work it around open houses.
Yep.
Because those are our people.
Yeah, that's great.
That said, and I'm assuming we're doing open houses live again this year, I hope.
We are, yep.
Perhaps a presence at each of those.
That'd be great too, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we already talked about that, thanks, Dory. So we were thinking definitely at the middle school, get the middle school parents aware of this, but we could do the elementaries too.
The elementary, they're still excited,
Yeah.
they're not exhausted.
Yep.
They know their kid might get into it, right? I think there are,
They will.
yeah, they will.
Project schedule is
Yeah.
aggressive.
We'll be grandparents.
Oh,
I know.
Well, as you get the dates on the open houses.
we have one.
Okay, well, we just need to get that into our calendar then, so we can plan to support that.
Yep.
But then the community forum would probably be after the PDP is in, and we have then some options. So it's mainly useful to you all so that you're able to communicate and hear from people as we start really weeding down in the next phase.
Are things
Yeah,
like
so
open
somebody
houses
wanna-
generally
Yeah,
completed?
I'm trying to pull up, I thought we had the open houses already up on the website. But I guess not.
Although some of them they don't go into October, do they?
Not this year. They have Meadowbrook going in October in the past.
I was just thinking in terms of like, as soon as they're all, we could take the email addresses from those people.
Yeah, where in September are you, I have the open house dates? You have any thoughts on September?
They're not set, so,
No, they are set.
oh,
They're just not up online.
yeah, if you don't, whatever you can spin out to us.
When's the last one? Latest one, I should
The
say.
latest open house is the 29th. Meadowbrook's on the 28th and the 29th, 2 nights.
Well,
We have one almost every week.
And you're saying that the elementary schools and the middle school, it's more about having, say, a table presence and information, maybe a board up or something.
At the elementary schools and the middle school, high school as well, but you're gonna have your most attendance at the elementary schools.
Mhm.
And it's, especially at Meadowbrook, it's crowded.
Yeah.
So you're gonna wanna have your table probably up where the PTO has their table upon entrance. Middle school is very crowded as well, and so we
You
put
will
it in
attend
for
it at
school.
middle school, Pete. Yeah.
What's that? Yeah, oh, Tim will work it in.
Mhm.
He'll work the announcements, he'll have people come to you. And then Mountain View and Maple Shade, also well attended, and we can set it up in the front lobby. You want those dates?
Yes.
Okay. Maple Shade is September 7th. I'm just gonna go in order of date. Birchland Park is September 14th. Mountain View is September 15th. High school is the 22nd. And Meadowbrook is the 28th and 29th.
I think for as much as I'd like to think that seeing us is gonna get their attention, it usually won't. It's usually if there's anybody more visible to the community. I mean, if we provide all the materials.
Yeah.
But I would say they're more likely to react to somebody they know than outsiders. But the high school, we talked about maybe a 5-minute presentation at the.
Yeah, I said to talk with Frank and see how he's setting up. Some years past, he's done a brief introduction, where people come into the auditorium and then they move out to follow their children's schedule. Other years he has not. He's done things like sign up, for the portals and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So depends on what he's scheduled or what he's basically structuring. Yep.
You wanna pick the other session?
You're looking for a full community forum, right?
Yeah,
When would you like to do
and
that?
that'd be more like a hour and a half at most time.
And that's gonna be
September.
September, and then it might be best to pick a place where we get, I mean, it's not so great to have try and have a meeting in a large room and have it feel small.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It would be better to do it, I don't know, if there's another place that might be a better.
The media room at the senior center,
That's like 40, 50 people. Max.
or you got the.
Or it's a big room.
Yeah, you can use,
Auditorium there.
that's not special.
Do you mean within the school building though, Dory?
Yeah,
or-
it doesn't have to be in the school, I mean, it could
The
be,
senior
but
center has an open space.
I kind of think it's nice to move it away from the high school.
Yeah,
once in a while
you could
and
probably
say,
sit
you know,
100 plus in there.
That sounds good. Yeah.
Pretty central to look at it, unless we go to another school.
I just would have to check
I'm
with
saying,
them.
what's at Birchland? Birchland doesn't, I'd say that would be, they don't really have
The cafeteria.
The cafeteria's too huge. Is a library, would the library be good?
It's too far.
You think so?
We do community stuff in the library.
Yeah.
And they walk it right in the front door and they
I
go,
think more people would show up. Where would people come?
they may come to the senior center.
Yeah.
Senior center's more like, that's good space.
Just a thought, but if you were to do it in the high school, you could do tours beforehand or after. But yeah, tours of the existing building, but we can always do that at a later,
Yeah.
there's gonna be more.
Yeah, I think there'll be
Done
more
today
chances
was
down
great.
the road. I mean, I think we're still at that early, getting everybody participating, they know what's happening.
I'm
We
just
talked a
thinking
lot
that if
about
you
the
want to
seniors
link it
being a good group
to groups that,
Yeah,
we need to bring on board,
yeah.
senior
Right.
center is not a bad place.
I'd say middle school and the senior center are the two biggest
Yeah.
populations.
Folks
senior
may be
center-
more comfortable going to Birchland.
But you're gonna have, if we have people at Birchland, they're gonna stop and get, won't be the full community forum, but they'll get information. Where the senior center, maybe we get seniors in there.
You're like, yeah,
Oh,
it's more towards the whole
Well,
community. as
I'm gonna be
Yeah,
playing volleyball next week.
would we
with
get,
them,
do you typically get
And then,
non-parents?
and then I have a meet the
Yes.
superintendent,
Yeah.
We did.
on the
Seniors
15th.
are
And senior center it
Then
is.
we should do it there.
Yeah.
Focused.
Okay, that's a great point.
All right.
That's a great point then, yeah. We should do it
Do
at
it
senior
there.
center then. Yeah, okay. You have a date?
Well, I would obviously have to, let's get a couple dates and then we'll go from there. The 14th and the 15th, right, are open house nights here, so maybe we
Yeah.
go.
Tuesday nights are usually meeting nights for the town.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can't be Tuesday, I can tell you that right
Yeah.
now.
What about something like, did I say, is there,
15th?
That's Mountain View.
that's, we have a
Open house.
21st.
That sounds, third week sounds good.
21st, is that what
Yeah,
it is? Yeah.
21st.
It's a Wednesday.
So Void's meeting night and the 22nd, the high school has their open house.
Okay.
What time are you looking to do it?
6?
6?
6 dinner time?
I know,
Well,
Yeah.
if you're at the senior center.
you've
That's-
already eaten.
Yeah, 6 probably makes sense.
Six.
That's why Marty's not allowed in the scene.
Boy.
All right, I will ask, and see if we can reserve for 21st at 6 PM. And then we'll get back to you.
Great.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, and our next meeting here, this group,
Yeah, we had identified, I think, the
It's
Monday.
originally going to be the 22nd.
Yes, yeah, but we'd like to kindly ask
Move it out.
that it get moved out a few days. So we submit on the 30th. If we can move the date out a bit further, that gives us more time, once we get cost estimates back, and to give you a good draft to look at ahead of the meeting, because you do need to vote with a quorum
Just submit
to
the
tell
drafts.
us that it's okay to submit. So, ideally, the 25th would be great. I know, there's a day that never works for Steve. He's still.
Typically Tuesdays. Yeah.
Tuesdays are bad, right?
Tuesdays are bad. Steve's off. Steve Crusoe.
Okay.
August 25th? Which is what you said?
Yeah.
If we could, and, or the Wednesday, 24th, 25th, let's start there.
This is okay for me.
School starts, we're all stuck back, in reality.
Yeah.
24th or 25th.
We had 2 o'clock on that. Is that what we're looking at?
Anytime,
We had 2 o'clock on the 22nd.
Right.
If
Two.
that works for you guys, we'll
2
keep
o'clock
it.
on the 24th, yeah, after.
Yeah, works.
Who gets
Okay.
back
We're not gonna
in
do-
too early, but
We're not
yeah.
gonna do 3 hours again, are we?
yeah.
Do the full time.
Here on out.
Better.
Try not.
Yeah, it's a lot of material, it
3
takes a
hours.
while to
I'm
digest.
kidding.
But that's why we
2
will get you a full draft
Okay.
ahead of
Yeah.
time.
And that gives me more writing time. Ooh, that's
No, it
great.
doesn't.
No, it doesn't. You have more time, I have more time.
All right.
What day are we celebrating?
Thursday the 25th at 2 o'clock.
Oh, the 25th, okay.
25th at 2 o'clock.
Great.
That's quick for you. Signature on those. That's closing out the windows and doors project.
Oh, good.
See how long it takes to close an MSP.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your patience. I know it's really.
Thank you for all your
No,
patience. I
thank
think we
you.
kept you more than you kept us.
Actually, Greg, when you say, I don't want it to cost more than our neighbors, can you name names of neighbors? Because I think we should do our due diligence.
I think that's what we're gonna be compared to, and I think they were,
And Long Meadow.
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
they were right around 6 figures.
78.4 million. MSBA reimbursed 44 million. It was built in 2011 through 2013.
Oh, so he knows already.
So adding inflationary
Right.
terms to that.
Wilbur and
Yeah.
Abraham and
It's gonna
Long
It's
Meadow.
gonna be a real
Yeah,
small
I guess
school at that point.
Like what their ultimate reimbursement was.
I haven't been able to find the square footage.
And I guess what was their reimbursement like how much did you give them?
I said 77.4 million.
For the total cost?
John, is that correct? I'm not sure if I heard you right, but I got your text. 77.4 for Long Meadow?
Yeah, whatever I texted you, Ben, yeah, I was just doing that, yeah.
Right, but we
And
would
that
add,
was 2011.
And that was
then
in
you have to
2000.
add
add
the-
inflation.
Yeah.
Right.
So let's work on those
What's
figures.
the,
We'll
what
bring
about
back
the
the
latest
other
one you've
figures
done?
later.
High school?
Sorry?
Comparable size, latest high school you've done, comparable size?
I'll send you the
Okay.
MSBA chart that shows you where
Yeah.
projects are over time.
That's your,
Let's do that.
And that's very helpful.
The next
because
SLT, can we show that to them?
Absolutely, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And then that can get worked through.
Their reimbursement rules like this.
Yeah, right.
Cost
I blame the
us.
MSBA respectfully, because if they just gave this to us 7 years ago.
7 years we applied, yeah.
Would have been
We
here.
don't want to be at the bottom of the list.
I know, but it's all relative. It would have been difficult then
Yeah,
too, right?
exactly.
I know.
So Ben, yeah, I think we'd have to talk to Dale, but I think they significantly changed how they reimburse projects since 2011, 2013 to now.
They have.
Yeah.
The 3011 form has gotten 10 times more complicated.
Yeah.
Much more stringent for sure, yeah, sure.
Factor in there, yeah.
Agreed, okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'm not sure we have a quorum, but take a motion to adjourn then. Greg's moved to adjourn.
Second.
Ryan has seconded. All in favor, say
Aye.
aye. Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Good time.
Absolutely.